and welcome to episode 8 of the Luckycast. I'm your host, DeoxysPrime, and joining me on this big edition of the anime podcast, we got Kenny.
The anime.
we got Mule.
Hello.
We got Funk.
Hello.
Making their very first debut on the anime podcast, let's give a warm anime welcome to Frank.
Thank you
Hi.
for having me. Please take care of me.
And a warm anime welcome to Matt.
Hi.
And finally, because I did not give him a warm anime welcome on his debut last time, everyone give another warm anime debut welcome to Collin.
Well, okay, I'd like everyone to say hi to me.
You know, when you give like 3 warm welcomes in a row, it just doesn't feel as warm anymore.
Steve, I'm out of warm anime welcome.
It's not my fault. You guys want me to do this, so I gotta do it.
You should have told me to prepare more anime welcomes. I had 2, I was ready for 2, and then you bust this on me.
I'm sorry. I'll keep you in the loop next time.
Thank you.
So, to get back on track, this is our Fall 2015 anime podcast. And as always, spoilers for people who care about that shit. We're going to be spoiling everything, so... we got a few housekeeping issues to go over. We're actually going to have 2 podcasts. This one and the Year in Review podcast, which we hope to record next week.
Which we won't.
Which we will.
Nope.
You don't have to, if you don't show up, we're recording it without you, Kenny.
Okay.
I now realize that wasn't a threat, so...
Okay, I'll call you until we record it then.
Yeah, there you go. There's a threat.
I'm gonna fucking kill you if you do that.
So, yes, we're going to keep all year in review stuff to the next podcast. This is just the fall season.
And what a year it was.
And what we got a new format that's borrowed from the last podcast that was kind of out of necessity because I fucked it up. So we're not going to do the whole go round the table and everyone gives their anime of the season anymore. We have a very specific list. I got all the shows that everyone watched this season. We're going to go about it in order. And, other than that, no changes. But just because we have way too many people here, I figured that some of the anime of the season choices were kind of going to overlap. So the old format's kind of outdated. We'll go with the new one from here on out.
Not to mention this season was pretty subpar, I might add.
It was, and we'll get to that. And the last thing is, starting with this podcast, we're gonna try and so everyone's assigned a show, and when they talk about that show, they'll be the first one to talk about it, and hopefully give a synopsis of what that show's about, because we kind of skimped on that in the past podcast. So, and anyone who's listening and like not familiar with what we're talking about would have been totally lost. We would normally just like jump into nuanced discussion of every anime without framing it correctly. So we're gonna try and do that.
2 years in, we're going to try to frame our podcast correctly.
Hey, we're learning. We're not professionals yet, but we're getting there. So with that in mind, the first anime we're gonna discuss from the season is One Punch Man. So if you want a synopsis of One Punch Man, it's an anime about a man who defeats everyone in one punch.
And is perpetually dissatisfied by
He
it.
has an existential crisis over it.
Steve, if I give a synopsis as short as that, are you gonna be pissed?
Kenny, not every show needs a paragraph, and One Punch Man is one of those shows.
I still think that you're, as Collin alluded to, that you might be leaving something out.
I am, and but the thing is, the show's premise is actually that simple, but there's obviously a lot more to it.
Then it's not that simple.
But no, but if it's an anime whose title sells itself.
It does, and it sold itself quite well to people overseas,
In Japan too.
Yeah, who seem to like it or even dislike it for all the wrong reasons.
We call them normies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they just hear this meme about. Oh, this guy, he's stronger than Gogo from Dragon Ball Z. You know?
Yeah, there's a bit of an overlap between us, the guys in the know who like anime and watch this stuff religiously, and the normies who kind of get the casual stuff and steal his work out and think they're being clever by doing that. But even in spite of that, we can hate normies all we want, but we can also actually talk about...
Here we go.
We can also actually talk about why the show was good.
Okay. Why do you
Hey,
feel the show is good then,
I
Steve?
watched 4 episodes, and I'm still planning to watch more. Don't shit on me too much.
I'm not.
No, I wasn't even going to address Kenny.
Well,
Why don't we let Steve start since he's framing this for us?
But I was gonna say, like, everyone in this chat has watched the show. Kenny's the only one who didn't finish it, but I actually did appreciate the fact that he even watched the first episode, because it was a struggle just to get him to do that. I don't know what he has against the show.
I don't have anything against the show. I just need motivation to watch it.
Or you just, your motivation, I guess, in not watching it is just to piss me off. So,
well, at first I refused to watch it out of just to make you mad.
Out of spite, as you often do with me. But we'll move on from that. But I did want to, there's a couple things I definitely want to touch on just to kickstart the discussion for the show. The first is probably one of the smartest things the show does, is that all of the, quote, one-punch gags are in the first episode. They get that shit out of the way right away so they can get into, the larger stuff that's going on with the show, which was appreciated, because, I mean, when the show started, that was just the joke.
Mm-hmm.
Just one joke, man.
They kind of... Episode 2 was mostly free of one-punch gags, but Episode 3 kind of had too much of a build-up to one.
Is that the one where...
That's the one with Carnage Kabuto.
Yeah, and he's getting punched around. And he's like, "Oh no, the market's closed."
That was more of a joke to his character, and not just he beat him in one punch, because that's what he does anyways.
But the one punch joke, Steve. The one punch joke isn't about him punching somebody and then dying. The one punch joke is about him just being so utterly disinterested in any cause of danger.
But I don't think that's a joke.
You can see exactly. It's not even that it's the one punch joke. It's that you can see where the joke is going. When he starts saying, "Oh, this is terrible. This is terrible." When Carnage Kabuto is slapping him around, and you know exactly where it's going. He's gonna be worried about something that's completely disconnected from the fight, and lo and behold, he is. There was a one punch gag, obviously in episode 2, where he kills Mosquito Girl in one hit. That was episode 2, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And it's they didn't do any build up to it. He just comes out of nowhere. What made it so funny is that it's Genos. He's about to sacrifice himself and explode. And then Saitama just comes out of nowhere and just slaps her against a fucking building. And you just see, the visual part of the gag is great, too, because it's just, you see just the blood just splatter everywhere.
But I guess my larger point is, every time he defeats an enemy, there's some joke about that, because, it's never going to be different to an extent.
Just saying that the one in episode 3 didn't land.
I thought it did, but, I mean...
I think because compare those two jokes, right? Mosquito versus Kabuto. Well, so one of them has infinite build-up, so you can really kind of get there first before the punchline, and the other one just kind of happens. So none of these jokes are very clever, on a base level. So the one really benefits from being very sudden.
Well, again, this is my point wasn't necessarily to analyze every gag. It was just to point out that the show is not about that.
No,
and I agree. They really pull back on that, thankfully.
And they also, you know what? The show also knows when to not be a comedy.
Yes,
it's not a straight gag show. The world building in the show is surprisingly good. It's very good. It reminds me a lot, actually, of Justice League Unlimited. With you have an entire organization of heroes, and you have them being assigned to different missions depending on their heroic power level.
Yeah, that was the exact point I was going to spiral into next. Is this show, if the show was always about Saitama, I don't think it would work. Because he's an okay character, but at his heart, he's still a gag character. So you couldn't base the entire show around him.
Can I raise umbrage with that sentence?
Sure.
So for me, I actually thought that he was the most interesting part of the show.
Really?
And they drifted away from his plot lines. The things that really intrigued me were early on. I got the sense that the big villain of the show was going to be something intangible that you can't punch once or more than once. So I was like, okay, when they started introducing his struggle with popularity and how he kind of, played up the role of being a cheat just for everybody else's benefit. I thought that was interesting.
That was great. I thought that was
I was going to say that was what, that was the one thing I kind of knew about the show going in, is that people thought of him, he's so powerful that people think he's a fraud. That idea really, interested me.
Same, or some plot line of him just trying to raise ranks within the society for, whatever reason. Just something that I could look at it and be like, yeah, he's not just going to punch this. That's really what I was looking forward to, and it seemed to be going that way towards the middle, but once it kind of reached the last arc, it was just all about punching things. And wouldn't you know it, punch something more than once. Wow.
Well,
I
yes.
would disagree with that, actually.
Well, I would agree with Funk that, like, I like Saitama as a character, but I don't think the show was necessarily ever really about that. I think the whole time he's there when he's needed, and the show spends most of its time building that universe around him, introducing the other characters, the other heroes, the idea that the hero association is just a big bureaucracy, and the heroes themselves aren't actually heroic. All they care about is advancing themselves in terms of ranks within the actual association. Whereas you have characters like Saitama and Genos, and especially Moomin Rider, who form like the heart of the show that make it work.
Yeah, and I have to say something I really enjoyed about Saitama's character. Am I saying this right? I'm saying Saitama, and you guys are saying Saitama. Am I putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable?
It's probably Saitama.
Okay, Saitama.
It's just, don't worry too much about the specifics. Just know it's definitely not Saitama. It's definitely not that.
Saitama. Okay, so Saitama. Saitama.
Advertisement.
Stop. Okay. So, something I really enjoyed about him is that when you think of the typical shonen protagonist, I'm not going to say you don't think of Saitama, because he has actually quite a bit in common with them. He's just a more grounded version of them. Because you think of a shonen protagonist, you think of a guy who is borderline retarded, and just really loves fighting. And Saitama is none too bright. He's actually not a very smart guy, but he's
an average guy.
He's below average. He's kind of he's a bit of a dolt, and that's exasperated by his apathy. But he also loves a good fight. So he's actually quite similar to the typical shonen protagonist. But they ground him a little bit more, and I think that was actually kind of a fun twist, rather than just making him completely different. Not that making him completely different wouldn't have been a bad idea or anything, but they had fun with it, or at least that's what it seems like. For a guy who can't really draw, one who is the original writer. I mean, he could probably draw better than I can, but the guy's writing is actually pretty good.
That doesn't make any sense. For a guy who can't draw, his writing is good.
No, I mean, like, fine. For a
I think
guy...
he just wanted to put it in contrast to where, like, I don't know.
Or like the typical guy who'd get popular writing a manga. You'd at least have some sort of writing or artistic ability in order to get popular like that. But he never really did. In fact, it's funny because this is they're adapting the Murata version of One Punch Man, which expands upon some stuff a little bit more. And if you look at Murata's art for it, I actually have not read the Murata version. I've only read the one version. But just looking at Murata's art, it's gorgeous and has this just incredible sense of movement, which they don't quite capture it perfectly in the anime adaptation, but the anime adaptation still looks quite nice. And now you've taken some nothing webcomic, had one of the best artists in the industry work on it, and then when you make the anime of it, it's not perfect on but the animation generally looks very nice, and it's become sort of a dick measuring contest between a bunch of different key animators to see how good they can make a sequence. And it's like you've taken an ironic joke too far.
But in a good way.
No, absolutely in a good way. Because the show did nothing but benefit from this.
Yeah, and I want to kind of build off that, because like it is a strong adaptation in a lot of ways, because like it does capture the art to a certain extent. Obviously, like if you watch almost any of the fight scenes, they're fucking gorgeous.
Yeah,
It was a miracle that they did it on supposedly just an average budget.
That definitely means there was a lot of love into this, and I actually want to. I looked up some of the staff, some of the key animators on this, and I'm not going to say yes, I followed his work for some time, because I haven't, but I am familiar with some of the stuff they've worked on. If I'm not gonna, do you want me to name names? Because it's not like you guys are gonna know these names.
You don't have to.
Okay, so it's got guy who did key animation for the first 3 episodes of Attack on Titan, and he's the guy he worked on the last arc of the Sea King episode, and he worked on the Boros fight in episode 12. Mm-hmm. And then you have a guy who did a bunch of key animation for Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood working on this show, and then you have the guy who did the first episode of Space Dandy, who's the key animator for that. And if you guys are all plebes, yeah, you guys are all plebes and haven't watched Space Dandy, but the first episode of Space Dandy has this absolutely gorgeous animated sequence towards the end. And this guy also worked on the first episode of One Punch Man, which leads me to believe that he probably worked on the Mole Man sequence at the end of that one.
Yeah, which was
so
exceptional.
You have a lot of talent working on this, and not all of them, from the looks of it, not all of them are from Madhouse. So they were just calling different animators to see who wanted to work on this show, and it looks like it came out as a real labor of love. And it's not always perfect. Like, obviously, it uses a lot of smear animation to kind of cover up some of the blemishes.
Can you define that term?
Smear animation. Okay, so you know when Superman goes super fast, right?
Yes.
If you were to pause the screen on Superman going super fast, you'd see that Superman had suddenly widened to immeasurable length.
Okay.
He'd suddenly become Wide Man.
Super Wide Man.
Super Wide Man, yes. And that would be smear animation. And One Punch Man uses that quite a bit. So it's not on model a lot during some of the big fight scenes.
But that's good. I think that's how you do.
No, it still
animation.
Looks very nice. It still looks very nice.
Yeah, and like to follow up on a point I was making before about just being a good adaptation. It also takes what is there in the original manga, which I haven't read the whole thing. I've read some of it, but I've seen enough to know it takes the manga and adds to it. It doesn't really detract anything, but there are scenes where it'll put in characters or ideas that show up later in the manga, earlier into the anime, to at least familiarize the audience with them sooner. Mm-hmm. And it takes certain scenes and I puts like a touch on it that you can really only do with animation. Like my favorite example was the scene where Boros punches Saitama to the moon, which is a fantastic scene. But in the manga, you see thought bubbles showing Saitama's inner thoughts during that scene. Whereas the anime eschews that in terms of getting rid of the thought bubbles, having basically no sound, or what sound is there is very muted, and just conveying what he's feeling through the animation, which was a nice change from the manga. Mm-hmm. So it's there are gonna be examples we talk about later in this podcast that are bad adaptations of their source material. This one is absolutely not.
Yeah, and one last thing I want to note about the world-building aspect that they actually cut from the manga, and I was a little surprised that they did. And it's something small, but it kind of affects the scale of the world. They cut out the threat level wolf, which is the one below tiger in the manga.
Really?
And it kind of takes away from the prestige of S rank when it just goes from tiger to demon, because S rank was established for heroes who could fight demon level threats on their own. So you just kind of go from every hero that's below S rank can do tiger but can't do demon, and then S rank can do demon, dragon, and god.
That's weird, because all they would need to put that in the show is
just say there's threat level wolf.
Right. There'd be like 4 extra lines of dialogue throughout the whole series where they go over the threat levels, and then they'd have... You know what I think it is? So you remember the intro, right?
Uh-huh.
And they're cutting the animation.
When they go the 3, 2, 1.
Yes.
Yeah. Kill shot.
Yeah, and each 3, 2, 1 are all the different threat levels. Maybe that is the only thing I could think of.
That's interesting. I never thought of that.
I highly doubt that's actually the reason, but
I mean, if it was like 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, it would not work.
No, because let's go hits on 4 in that measure.
Yeah.
So it just would not sound right at all.
It's kill shot, I believe.
Whatever.
Mule, Frank, Matt, you guys want to jump in here with anything?
Go ahead, Matt.
Okay. I guess one thing I did want to kind of say about it was, I really enjoyed it until after episode 5.
What happened?
After episode 5, it kind of took a downturn for me because, like, it got really, really formulaic and predictable for me. Because, like, they kind of just did the same thing every time. Evil bad guy came in, he destroyed shit, he beat all the heroes, all these kind of generic, not really special heroes who are all like, oh, I'm so badass, and then they get their ass kicked, and then, like, something bad would happen to Genos, probably, and right before he dies, Saitama comes in and saves the day. And, I mean, that didn't happen with Boros, but,
I feel like that only happened once. That only happened in the Sea King arc.
it did, I guess, and I guess it kind of happened again with Boros, only because, like, I mean, it wasn't, I don't know, maybe I'm just...
Saitama was the only guy who fought him,
It kind of
though.
happened with the Meteor, too, though. You know,
And the Meteor.
like,
The
they're all
Meteor.
working
With the
together
Meteor.
with the Meteor, and then just Saitama comes in and he punches it. Like, you know, you have Metal Knight there and everything, and then
That was
Genos
no, I
is
think that
there,
was
and...
no, I think, but see that scene or that episode is really important to introducing Metal Knight as a character and seeing
Right.
how little he cares about actual civilian casualties.
Right, and then
guess
you
so.
kind of
It
get
also
that
it
feel
also
again.
spurred on like how the civilians feel about Saitama afterward.
I guess
I
so.
think Matt's point is larger to that Saitama is just the one who saves the day every time, and I guess he's right, but I think that's, at least from my perspective, something you have to kind of accept, seeing as that he is the hero. But they at least change it up with Boros in that it's not just a one-punch fight.
Like, I know, but I know what's gonna happen.
Yes, but
And it's just
like,
kind of
it's
boring. Like,
the
when I was...
it's the nature of the character in the series that I think you kind of have to.
Well, now
accept.
you Well, there you go, Matt. Now you understand how Saitama feels. You know what's gonna happen.
That's the funny thing. That's kind of how I felt watching this, because when I was watching the Sea King thing, I was like, he's just gonna come in and punch him, and then it's gonna be over.
Yeah, but I mean,
And that's gonna be it. And then Boros fight, I was just kind of like, you know, all this animation is very nice. It's very pretty, but I don't really care what's happening at all because I already know that he's gonna win. And like all
The point is not that he wins.
Okay, wait. Okay, what I love about the Boros fight is that all the power-up shit that would usually be given to the hero in most other anime is all given to the villain, and you start kind of to feel you kind of feel yourself like
rooting for Boros.
you feel excitement welling up inside you.
He's great
because you really want Boros to get himself a good fight out of Saitama.
Maybe I would if
then-
I actually cared about Boros, because I did.
Also,
that's the other thing.
Let me interject real quick. So I actually did care about Boros, and the reason I think that I did was because early on they established that Saitama's motivation to have like a real challenging fight. So then Boros comes along and he has the exact same motivations. So you're like, oh boy, this is because Boros is talking about how satisfied he's getting that he's met an opponent like Saitama. So you start to feel like, oh man, Saitama's got to be feeling this way too, right? So that kind of made me invested in it. And then of course at the end you kind of get the rug pulled out from under you, and it's like, oh, you weren't even really trying. Blah, blah, blah.
That scene is actually because when I read that in the one version, the sadness of that scene didn't really hit me.
Like,
And
the entire Boros fight is kind of a tragedy because, like, it's two characters who, like, basically just can't get what they want, just kind of fighting their own futility. Like, Saitama can't get a good fight. Boros wants a good fight out of Saitama, but he is nowhere near powerful enough, and it just kind of pushes that home because, like, there's Saitama who basically understands the position Boros is in, and he basically pities him through that fight because he could just kill him in one punch, but he lets the fight just drag on. Because Boros really wants a good fight.
And there's also a couple things about that as well, as like the scene of Saitama with his like life drained out of his face. He's like, "Don't you think you've had enough?" or whatever. That scene was great. And there's also, I don't know if anyone noticed that, but like that whole last fight was a great callback to Saitama's dream from the first episode.
Yeah, I did.
Where
I
they
did
straight
notice that.
They straight up play the same music, and they have that like same heartbeat effect when like Boros is realizing what's going on, and like he's finally being tested. It was. I just thought that was like a great way to tie the series together as a whole. Whereas I don't know if it was like that in the manga, but like a lot of anime adaptation will just end, not try to tie everything together, because it's obviously the source material is not written that way.
Yeah,
but it's a good when the anime adaptation does that, so it makes the series feel complete.
and obviously they didn't have enough Murata material to really go 2 quarters here. But I'm a little disappointed that we did end only on 12 episodes, because the S rank guys, it's really great to see the S rank guys kind of become the supporting cast.
Yeah, that was the one thing that kind of, as someone who didn't read the manga.
So yes,
like,
guys like King and Tatsumaki.
And then you get Puri Puri Prisoner and stuff like that. But like there are so many people in the S rank that like I kind of really wanted to see more of. Like even Metal Knight, like he was completely absent from that final fight, and I was like, oh, alrighty then. Like
yeah,
I think maybe okay.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like you have all of these characters, and it's a very interesting setting for them. But with 12 episodes, you really can't do as much as you obviously can do in a 24 episode show.
Let's hope Madhouse is the one who animated this, and they're well known for not doing second seasons. So let's hope for a change of pace for them.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
I think maybe I may have gone into this expecting something different than what I got, because I was expecting it to be a comedy, and what I got was like
an existential crisis tragedy.
Five episodes with a fair amount of comedy in them, and then after that there is very little comedy, and what was there I just didn't find that funny at all.
You can't call it... No, I'm sorry, continue, Matt.
And I mean, I guess maybe I was just going into this expecting comedy, and what I got was just a lot of action, but with characters that I just really didn't care all that much about, because a lot of them to me just felt like tropes. Like just kind of generic anime tropes. And so I just didn't really have any feelings toward them at all. So I don't know. Maybe I just went into it with the wrong mindset. I don't know.
I really liked watching Saitama come to terms with not being popular. I really liked Prisoner's arc as
I love that.
He has to man up and realize that he needs to become stronger to represent S rank. Or Genos, who kind of starts out as a bit of an edgy faggot, and he has to kind of cool off when he realizes that he's never going to be as good as Saitama.
Yeah, I'll say the series doesn't make as much blatant jokes in the second half as it does the first half, but the show stays very like goofy and irreverent throughout the whole thing. Because like when he walks into that meeting with all these fucking weird ass looking S rank people, and you got this fucking watchdog man just sitting at the table.
Watchdog man.
Watchdog.
We still have gotten nothing from Watchdog Man in the actual.
But I mean, it's just like a lot of just the situational stuff. Is the concept of it is hilarious, especially to me. So even if like characters weren't making jokes or obvious humor kind of stuff, like just the situational stuff did it for me enough. That even just like every fucking face that Saitama makes is different and funny,
hilarious in every context.
Yes,
that's it's kind of funny because when I saw like the pictures of it beforehand, I was like, oh, okay, like that. Like I thought it was funny. Then I saw it in the anime, and I was like, that wasn't that funny, was it? And I feel like maybe.
Break my heart every time
you
motherfucker.
I feel like
did you know it was coming?
Maybe. I mean, I knew it was coming because I knew it was going to be in it. Because
right, but that's the thing. You can't knock something for not being too funny when you know it's going to happen.
I also think that scene is funnier out of context than in context.
Yeah,
just like a lot of scenes are like that. You just think about them and they're funnier to me now than when I watched it.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm really bagging on the show, but I liked it. I did like it. It's just that I don't know. Maybe it's just the fact that I think one thing is whenever a fan base gets this big for something and they get this vocal, it can really get on my nerves.
Yeah, I completely agree. And a lot of times, like, I wish I could be in a vacuum so I can be away from that stuff, because it can ruin it for me too. But this is not, like, thankfully that did not happen at all for this show. But I do totally get where you're coming from.
This show is really good, but if you actually think it's the anime of the year, then you haven't watched any anime this year.
It's close.
It's up there, but it's like it's not, definitely not number one.
It doesn't help that I've seen several people say this is the anime that saved anime.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone who says that is not being serious. So. At least I hope not.
Yeah.
So real quick, I wanted to.
Oh, shit, dude, we're still on One Punch Man. I just want to
take
note
an argument with Shellblade here.
Okay.
I don't think you could reasonably call this an existentialist.
No. I was
tragedy.
just being a cheeky cunt. Don't worry.
Okay, well, the reason that struck such a chord with me is because that's what I was saying before. It seems like it's going to go that way, and then all that's just abandoned like halfway into the series, and I was
it's still
extremely disappointed.
Oh, so that's what you wanted? Okay.
Yeah, I would have. I think that would have been much better.
Yeah. I think the tonal shift may have been a bit too jarring.
The thing is, it didn't have to have a complete tonal shift to do that. It's just.
I also don't think it can focus on that forever, though.
I think it's more. It's going to have a longer lifespan than trying to put any kind of serious battle in there.
Yeah, it's
we talk about this a lot, but there's just never ever any tension in the show.
Yeah, but like this is a show. I don't think that matters.
Yeah, well, I mean, man, if you guys when the Murata version of the manga gets through the Monster Association arc, you guys should absolutely read that, because that's better than anything in the show. It's fucking fantastic.
Okay, well, we'll take your refer. We do need to move on because we've been going
Before
on a while.
Let's just all give a special shout out to how good the opening theme was.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Funk always has to throw that in there, and he's totally right. It's a fucking great opening.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next show on the list is the Funk show of the season.
Yeah.
And to kind of explain this. Every season now, there tends to be one show that Funk likes to champion, and he gets everyone else to watch. Last season, I don't think we need to go over too much what that was. But this season, that show was Everything Becomes F, The Perfect Insider. So, Funk, why don't you tell us whether everything became F or everything became fucked?
Oh my god, how long were you sitting on that one?
A while. I had to write it down.
So, for anybody who has not seen the show, Everything Becomes F is a mystery, actually, and not really a thriller, but it's just about there's a murder in a completely isolated room inside this isolated laboratory inside this isolated island, and it's up to a clever but disinterested professor and his Genki sidekick to figure it out. Despite how hackneyed that sounds, it was actually very good. What I liked about the show and what drew me into it and what links all the Funk shows together is that it had a really good
Funk cinematic universe.
It had a really good art direction, especially towards the last act of the series, where they went into a lot of there was like this VR space that the characters sometimes
the pods.
Yeah, and anytime they were in there, the visual direction was just very good. One thing I liked about this, and I complained about this, the same thing with Ranpo Keaton last season, because it didn't do this. But one thing that Everything Became F did is that it laid the groundwork for the audience to figure out a lot of the solution to the crime.
Well, I mean, any good mystery really does that, though,
And that's
which is why I really liked it in comparison to like Sakurako-san, but I guess we'll get into that later.
Yeah, but the thing, it's worth pointing out, given so many shows don't do it, I just wanted to point out when something did, because I think it was Shellblade who posted about basically what happened. He was a little bit wrong, but mostly right.
He was on the right track.
Yeah. I think I didn't quite I couldn't crack why she cut off the legs, but it turned out that was just a red herring, the leg part at least, to throw people off.
And it did.
Yeah.
But
it threw me off. But yeah, I'm sorry. Do you want to keep going, Funk?
No, you can go.
Okay. Because you were giving the intro, but yeah, I for those parts where I could finally crack the case, I really enjoyed that part of it. But it took so long to get there. It felt like we were reviewing over and over again. This is an anime that could have been 6-7 episodes if you take the material and cut it down, and it probably would have been a lot better.
Collin, stop stealing my points.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead. We're on the same wavelength here. So
when you noted about the visuals of the show, I thought it was interesting because in Ranpo Kitan, you talked about how a lot of the show is just talking, but it has the wonderful, I guess I could say, blocking like a play,
like poetry,
in order to compensate for a lot of it just being dialogue. And
I don't think they had that with this.
Until we get to the VR part of this stuff, where I guess it's just an imaginary world,
which took a while.
Yes, there really isn't much visual stimulation going on. However, I did really like the style of the show, despite a pretty gray color palette. I've noted this several times, but the show completely avoids any use of side mouth. Anytime a character is standing profile, you see their jaw moving. It's a little...
It's Collin's thing, apparently.
I do appreciate the little things like that. Also, all the characters actually look Japanese.
Which is incredibly rare.
Yes.
Yes. I want to build off of what Collin was talking about, because it was by far my biggest issue with the show. And I'll just say, I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of the show, but I did not hate it. This show was not stupid in the way Ranpo Kitan was stupid. But the biggest problem with this show is that, at least for a little more than half of it, it kind of fell into a very predictable rhythm. You would have episodes where alternate, like, very clearly between, here's the episode where the intriguing murder mystery plot shenanigans happen, and then here are the episodes where the characters do nothing but sit down and talk about what happened. It's just like an entire episode. Mm-hmm. And like what Collin was talking about is like those episodes where people are just sitting and talking. There's no attempt to like spice that up or make it like engaging to the viewer in any way. It's just shots of people sitting down.
Well,
and it would fall into a very, even worse, it would fall into a very specific formula of you have the Moe character. She would sit there kind of like looking distressed, sometimes with her hands in her arms and stuff like that. And then Saikawa sensei would stand across from her, just like smoking his endless carton of cigarettes. And they would just go over the events of the previous episode and kind of engage in this pseudo intellectual nonsense that really had nothing to do with the plot.
7 is a number.
Yes, and then inevitably what would happen is like Moe would get very hormonal and jealous of any time Saikawa Sensei would mention Dr. Magata, and then he would respond to her with some kind of like subdued snark, but then would just like reassure her that everything would be okay.
Yeah, I wanted to like their relationship because like I liked both characters separately, but whenever they got there was far too much time dedicated to Moe being jelly.
Yeah, and I honestly, like, I never got invested in either of those characters. Part of that because I thought the show also had a very, like, bad first episode where it didn't really give me enough to understand what was going on.
The first episode barely needed to happen.
Yes. And, like over the course of the show, obviously, they kind of drip feed you more and more about who these characters are and how they relate to each other. But it just never really clicked with me. The only interesting character in this show was Dr. Magata, who was absent for almost all of it, which resulted in like her expository scenes either being told by other characters, or you had these vignettes in the past, which was far more interesting,
with
like
the
stuff
most
going on with her and her
obvious
uncle.
Penis imagery.
Yes, but it was like that stuff was more interesting to me than what was going on in the lab, and like that stuff was just like 2-minute stuff at the end of every episode.
I like the way that they made it tie in, though. You know, like
I don't think it was when you kind of like delineated as either being the stuff in the lab or the stuff in the past, when they're very much related to one another.
Yeah, but like the the stuff they were talking about in the past, I wanted to know what was going on with that, discover that mystery more than the murder mystery.
There wasn't really a mystery, though, of what was going on in the past. Like, it took a little bit to put all the information out there, but the show doesn't leave anything up to guesswork about what happened in the past. The audience knows.
It gets to it eventually, but I don't think it's entirely clear the whole way through.
But that's like saying that you wanted them.
They don't really pick
just
up
the solution to the mystery on episode 5 just because they haven't gotten to it yet. You just have to wait for these things to happen. But they do lay it out eventually.
Yeah, but I'm just talking about more the contrast of I found that more interesting than what they were showing. So if they had made the characters of Saikawa and Moe more interesting, if the stuff they were doing was more interesting to me, that wouldn't have been a problem. I'm just pointing out I found that stuff in the past more intriguing than what was happening in the present.
So,
and yes,
yeah?
I was going to say, yes, they are related, but they were still happening kind of parallel.
Okay. Well, so one thing I wanted to bring up is the whole, people sitting around talking dilemma.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for one, it does not at all have the same kind of visual flair that Kitan did, but I do think that the shots were still framed well within the realm of just still being realistic about what's going on and not just getting abstract with it. With those restrictions, I still think it looked somewhat visually interesting. Not amazing, but
okay.
I still liked it. I just
Any reason why?
Well, it was just an all-around well-directed show, and that carried around also to those scenes. Just there's a right.
I'm not sure because
there's a difference between two people talking, just having a bunch of two shots and shot reverse shot, and boring things like that, or just being a little more visually interesting with it while still not making things up and transporting the characters to a beach, etc.
All right.
But you have to keep in mind that, and I believe this was based on a novel, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So in a mystery novel, that's what it's going to be a lot of the time. Characters
obviously
pontificating and just trying to work things through, especially when there's like detective and assistant. So maybe it's a bit too literally adapted, but
I don't even think it's that. I think they stretched it out because, like Collin was talking about before, you could do this in half the time. Like the format of this show is more suited to like an hour-and-a-half movie than it is to an 11-episode anime. So you're left with these long stretches where characters aren't really talking of anything of substance. They're just recapping what has already happened. So you do need some of that, like characters thinking through the mystery.
I think that helps though. Like if you're watching
too much
it
of it though.
Yeah, but if you're watching it on a week-to-week basis and you're not really binging it, like sometimes you need that bit of a refresher. And that even helps if you're reading it as like a novel, because if you're reading a mystery novel, you're obviously not going to be like going through and writing down all the details and everything like that. So it kind of helps to maybe cat herd you a little bit, put things into focus, and make you like focus on what they're thinking of and what the individual characters' motivations are and their way of tackling the mystery and whatnot. And I think it kind of helps to center it. I can see what your point is by like, you can kind of cut all that out and make it flow a little bit more cohesively. But if you're adapting a mystery novel, like it kind of helps to do that.
I do agree, but my point was they drew it out way too much.
To add on to what Frank was saying, I can't really agree with Colin's statement that the first episode is entirely unnecessary for the most part, due to the fact that it sets up the scene, it sets up the status quo for the entire series. It gives you an introduction to like what the characters do in their daily lives and like how they go about things.
And not only that, it gives you an introduction to the format of how the series is going to be tackled as well, because you have the interactions between Saikawa Sensei and Moe. Then you have a couple of flashbacks here and there to Moe's interview with Magata, and at the very end you have like a flashback to the past and whatnot. So that's really setting the stage for everything that happens afterwards in terms of the format and how this is going to be presented to you.
But think about all the time in the show and the other episodes where these... I feel like the scenes that were necessary in the first episode were seldom. And I feel like those scenes could have easily been integrated into ones in following episodes if we cut down on the runtime for this.
Yeah, but so I enjoyed the first episode, and I'm not going to judge an anime just by how necessary it all was, as long as I'm enjoying it. If I'm not enjoying something and it's unnecessary, of course that's a bit more egregious. But if I'm enjoying something, I don't care if it necessarily had to be there.
Well, I was thankful I was able to jump right from episode 1 to episode 2, because that's when I picked it up. I probably would have forgotten to go to episode 2 had I watched it week 1.
Heyo.
So, to add, oh, go ahead.
Oh no! It's you were about to add to something, and I was going to change the subject. So you go ahead.
Okay. Let's see. To add on to what Steve was saying about or let's see, I guess both Steve and Collin were kind of concurrent with the whole pacing and the character development thing. I would agree that the biggest issue with the show is probably the development of the relationship with Sakurako-sensei and Mule. However, I would say that the issues with the character development kind of stop there because everything else is pretty much just a piece in like the chessboard to like figure out the whole mystery. Because like the entire point of the show is basically just Nagata Sensei or Hakusei, and it's like the entire thing is just like exploring her mentality through various like instances and like details. So I do agree the show is very weak in terms of like the relationship of those two characters. I think the show overall very much succeeds in what it's trying to do character wise, like in how it like presents itself.
Sure, but I just didn't find any of that very engaging. Not to mention like the relationship between those two characters ultimately goes nowhere.
I would also
I don't feel like they ended up in a better place than where they were to begin with.
I feel like the last episode seemed to make it clear that they're a lot closer now. Yeah. They seemed like they were a lot closer at the end than they were at the beginning because they actually went on a date. And
but it didn't seem like they wanted to commit to that.
They looked a lot. I don't. Maybe I'm just reading a little too much into it, but just from how they were reacting to one another, they just seemed a lot friendlier and a lot like I actually found the last episode kind of sweet with how they like where they ended up together because it seemed like they were getting a little I don't know. It seemed like they were getting closer to me.
Yeah, the sentiment was really nice, I found. I mean, I feel like you can't really expect it to make like a huge leap in terms of the way they perceive one another, but you can definitely see that it was starting to go somewhere.
Like I wasn't actually expecting him to kiss her, which it looked like they were going to do, but then they didn't, which I actually kind of liked. Because that would completely go against his character.
Yeah, it would be really forced if he did that. So I like how it's kind of small steps, which I think really works for his character arc, but you know. That's what I think.
Can we talk about how Dr. Magata has no motivation for anything?
Well, okay, yeah, that is what I was going to change the subject to.
Okay, good.
So this show was apparently too deep for everyone. It was too deep for us, the audience. It was too deep for the writers, and it was too deep for the characters in the show. I don't mind a character whose motivations seem like a mystery. You have characters like iconic characters like that. You have your Anton Chigurhs, right? Your Lorne Malvos,
your Lorne Michaels.
That's your OJs.
Nobody got that.
Those can be fun, interesting characters to follow, and they can be terrifying characters. The thing is, we kind of see Dr. Magata from the perspective of Saikawa and Saikawa. Fuck.
Don't get too hung up on it. We're not native Japanese.
Fuck the Japanese. So sorry.
Proceed.
So we kind of see him, and he kind of admires her, and it makes Saikawa, who he seems otherwise as a pretty easily understandable character, but he's presented as someone as a kindred spirit to Magata, and I don't really buy that. Dr. Magata.
What do you mean by
they just say
kindred
Dr.
spirit?
Magata is, and it's also they kind of tie in they want to say that her motivations are that way because she's a genius, rather than just psycho. They should have just been like, she's just different. You can't understand her morality.
What do you mean by kindred spirit? Because I know what that phrase means. It's just I did not get that at all.
Oh, I mean, Magata seems to have quite and I not a romantic affection, but
it's like the whole series
rather affectionate towards Saikawa.
Right.
She was also like, I set up this elaborate plan so that you could come and like figure it out.
Right.
Not him specifically, but someone like him.
The thing is, though, so when they're interacting in the last few episodes, it seems like what it should be, that they're those two are on completely different levels. Like when Magata is talking down to Saikawa, she's talking down to him. Like it's almost like she's patronizing him a lot of the time, and he realizes that and accepts it, and still has an admiration for her anyway. But it's not like on a buddy kindred spirit level. It's on like a college professor talking to an elementary schooler. It's like very good. You put the right shaped blocks in the right holes. Well done. It's something like that. It's not like two old college buddies meeting. It's not.
No, that's not what I meant either. That's not what I meant.
But it's just there's a whole level of one-sided condescension and one-sided admiration, obviously from two different directions, that colors their relationship.
Okay, well, I didn't really think about it from that perspective. From this perspective that she was actually being condescending towards him the entire time, and I kind of like that. That kind of makes me look at it a little bit differently. That being said, I do feel like the presentation of Magata as something completely nebulous to everyone looking in on her. I felt like that was a little. It sometimes felt like it was just a cheap way to not explain why she does what she does.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way.
Like all her, like from what I got was that she seemed to have this idea that like death is freedom or something. And
but she doesn't want to kill herself.
But she doesn't want to kill herself.
She just wants to ride camels.
She wants her daughter to kill her.
She sees it as a natural cycle.
For some reason. That's never explained.
See, what I got from it was that, and this is obviously what the show wanted you to get, but it worked for me, and I didn't feel much need to question it, but just the idea that she's operating on such a higher level that all her motivations for anything are so alien to everybody that they're just not going to make sense even if explained. She's not operating under the same kind of logic that the other characters are, that the rest of humanity is.
Yeah, that's really lazy kind of writing, though.
No, it's not always that way. It's
sure.
But also, I don't think, for that reason, I don't think her motivations are very relevant or intrinsic to the plot. You just accept these things happening as a force you can't control and just see these other characters, what they do about it.
Sure, but then it makes the whole story feel pointless.
Does it?
That's kind of...
It's kind of like they really build up this whole idea of her as not... They really try to portray her as, like, not a psycho. Like, they just... Like, they're trying to say, oh, she's so genius. Like, they're constantly telling us about how great she is. But then they never really build up on that. They just say, oh, she's so great.
Yeah, they should have been a little bit... I feel like they should have... Like, the characters should have been a bit more terrified of Magata.
Yeah.
Magata.
And whenever she is presented, she's not... Like, the show never presents her as, like, evil or anything. Like not... Like, she's never... seems to come off as, like,
which isn't
a bad
bad.
person.
She comes off as kind of benign. That's not bad. That could actually help make her feel more like a threat.
But
I'm not okay. Maybe they weren't trying to go for that. I don't know. Fuck this show. I kind of like it, but I kind of don't. It
could have been a lot better.
Yeah, I feel very split on it.
And also, if she's a genius, why, like, what, the whole plan of hers is kind of stupid, because how would she know her child would look exactly like her?
Well, okay, she didn't plan for that.
It's still silly.
It's still silly.
Yeah, it is a little dumb.
Okay, we need to move on, but before we do funk,
Yes.
I know you want to comment on the opening and the ending.
I do. I thought both were fantastic. I
Yes.
wanted to point out that the ending theme is in 7, which you just never see, and I just loved it.
Do you think that was intentional because 7 is an important number in the context of the show?
Maybe that would be interesting, but it's more likely a coincidence.
That would be truly George Lucas tier, you know?
Yes, but I do think that both are some of the best music of the year, best endings and best openings. I really thoroughly enjoyed them.
I would
Would you
actually
say,
agree
Funk,
with
that you got into anime because of openings and endings?
It's certainly helped.
I especially like the opening a lot. It's extremely catchy.
Oh yeah. I was walking around Tokyo and I heard it one time and I was like, oh baby.
Okay, Kenny.
Yes.
Oh, you sound chipper. This is good. Sorry we've held down on you for so long, but you're up next.
No.
Yeah. It's time.
So, Kenny, this is a series that we've never gotten to talk about on the podcast, and I'm happy we finally can.
Is it?
So why don't you tell us a bit about Yuru Yuri?
Oh,
San
dude, I'm
Hai?
checking out. Time for break.
Yes. Dick. What is there to say about Yuri Yuri?
Well, tell people who don't know what it is, what the concept.
That's why I gave you the job, Kenny, so you can come up with something.
Well, unlike the first 2 seasons, like this season revolves around most of the supporting characters like Ayano and Himawari and stuff. So,
but
cool.
what's the setting? What are the characters? Just in a general sense, not necessarily this season, but
it's a bunch of middle school girls in a club, and they
all like each other.
Yes, they all like each other.
They really like each other.
They're more than just good friends.
Wait,
Oh, boy,
are you
Yes.
saying they're all lazy lesbians?
Lesbians?
You might be able to say that.
If that helps you.
Lesbians?
If
I
it
did.
pleases.
Jesus.
But yeah,
I mean, there really isn't much to say. It's like cute.
It's a slice of life comedy.
It's like cute girls doing cute things, but it's funny.
Yeah, I do think it's a bit more than that. The thing about Yuru Yuri is that this has been going on for 3 seasons now, and I know Funk had a similar feeling with another show this season, but a lot of times with slice of life shows, you can get kind of burned out on them.
This one's not the case though.
Yeah,
it always
and
brings something new. It's like, I don't know. It just always makes you laugh because it doesn't recycle the jokes. Like
I think that's because it has 8 characters to really play around, and you mentioned, Kenny, it focuses a lot more on the second group of 4 characters, the student council.
Mm-hmm.
So by bringing in
the point where it became the Himawari and Sakurako show for the first half of it.
Yeah, so by bringing in 4 not new characters, but bringing them much more into the spotlight, it's able to explore new jokes and new combinations of character archetypes and just work a lot better.
Yeah, and one thing Kenny touched on is like this show is very good at not like overusing jokes. It like if it has a running gag, it maybe brings it up once or twice a season. Like, did anyone even realize that no one made an invisible Akari joke the entire season?
Yeah, I noticed that.
It was really kind of weird.
I was expecting it. I was just like,
I was expecting it in the last episode, and they didn't really go for it, and that's good. It knows when to use these jokes, and even more than the other seasons, they brought in like a lot of the periphery characters, like their family members, to kind of spice things up, give a different feel to it. There was a lot of situations where they would pair up characters who had not normally been paired up in previous seasons, which
like
again,
who was it? Like Yui and Ayano.
Yeah,
but they didn't know how to like interact with each other. They just kind of sit there in awkward silence.
Yeah,
make bad puns.
And
keep
the thing
making
about
puns, London.
And the thing about this 3rd season is that it was handled by a different studio than the other 2 seasons.
It was.
Yes, it was.
I didn't notice that.
They dropped some of the things like the opening to the other 2 seasons, like with Akari. It didn't have that, which felt a little weird. I felt like the animation quality was not quite as high as the first 2 seasons.
I don't know. I'd pretty say it's pretty much the same.
No, it wasn't huge, but I mean there was times where you would notice it, but they did a good job of like capturing the look and the feel of the first 2 seasons, which is kind of a big concern that a lot of people had going to this one, and myself as well. But I thought they did a terrific job. This is like of all the shows, animes I've watched over the past few years, this is the one that consistently makes me laugh out loud the most.
Mm-hmm.
So I give it a huge amount of credit for that.
It does, and it was like easily one of the better ones this season.
Yeah,
Like,
I thought this was like as funny, if not more funny, than the other two seasons.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to remember exactly how funny they were, but I would say that this one was at least on the same level. I'm amazed that for the third season of a slice of life show, it was thoroughly entertaining.
Yeah. What's sad is that, like, you know, like Steve, like you always said, like it like shows never really get a fourth season.
It's lucky I've got to like have gotten even a third.
Yeah,
like it sells well, not exceptional, but
I mean,
yeah,
it's
I wouldn't expect any more.
It's kind of like Seinfeld. I want it to come back, but I don't because like I'm not sure, like, you know, what more can they do, like, to make it just as funny.
Yeah.
They're gonna mine all that space eventually.
Jeez.
That's not a joke. That's what.
Why was it funny?
It wasn't.
Yeah, right. We're still.
I do want to point out that usually, and this is throughout the first two seasons, the OVAs, Yuru Yuri has been a show that has always consistently had pretty good music, and it's always mixed it up too. Each OVA has its own distinct opening and ending theme, and they're good, and a lot of thought goes into them. But this season, I don't know, the ball was dropped. I really did not like any of the music. I mean,
It
the
was
incidental
enjoyable.
music that they brought back from previous seasons was good,
Yeah.
but that's not new.
Are you just talking about like the background music, or
No.
are you talking about like opening and ending theme?
The background music was good, but it also most of it wasn't proprietary to the season. The opening and ending themes, those were new, and they weren't great. They weren't good at all.
Yeah, I didn't care for the opening. I thought the ending was okay, but like the other two seasons like have way better in those departments. So
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm used to such a high, because I really like the other ones, and I'm used to such a high mark quality, and just didn't
Yeah.
get it. So, those of us who watched it, who's the best Yuri Yuri?
Ayano,
Himawari.
of course.
I forget her
Girl.
name. Chitose, white-haired girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She wasn't in this season a lot.
No,
No.
but she was in a good reasonable
sister did-
enough amount.
Wait, her sister did make an appearance, right?
Yeah, she made a
Chizuru?
couple appearances.
Yeah, she wasn't in a whole lot either.
Did only us three watch it?
I think so.
Mule, Frank, did you guys watch it, right?
Yeah, I
Um,
watched it. I mean,
I was
any-
not able to get to it because I haven't finished the second season yet.
Okay.
are you fucking kidding me?
I mean, I can't watch the third without seeing the second.
Yo, I know you
It's
bought
not
me a
really
Wii-
the kind of show
Yo.
that's.
I know you bought me a Wii U, but go fuck yourself.
I'm gonna get to it eventually, Kenny. It's
I
just
mean,
I
here's
didn't
the
have
thing:
time.
it's not the kind of show that's so intensive that you would need to.
It's
Finish the
this is
second
the same
season.
fucking situation with
Right.
Ozaki-kun with Steve.
But we're not fighting old battles.
We'll fight
Stop
old
it.
battles as long as we need to. Was that this year or last year?
That was last year.
Okay, so we can't bring it up in the year end.
Because that was your favorite anime last year, wasn't it, Funk?
It could have been. It was very good. I don't remember
So
what I
fucking
took.
funny, and Steve's just like, nah. Nope.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Did anyone else want to add anything to Yuri Yuri?
Kyoko best girl.
Okay.
That rum raisin.
So, Mule,
Yes.
you have the challenge to talk about a show that only you watch.
Oh Jesus fucking
Here we
Christ.
go.
So, go ahead, Owarimonogatari. Why don't you try to sell us on this?
Dude, now
Okay.
we all get a break. This is great.
Okay, fuck you, Colin, for one.
Steve, you're
Anyway.
giving me time to drink. This is not a good thing.
No, that is a good
No,
thing.
it's not. At least I'm
Cool.
talking.
Mule.
Drunk Kenny, get here fast.
Let's let Mule explain this.
All right. So to like describe Owarimonogatari, I have to like actually give some backstory in the series, because the entire all of the seasons basically follow the same kind of style, which is basically main character helps female characters solve like supernatural problems, etc., etc. Now, what makes the show work is that the show places a heavy emphasis on expressing things exclusively from the main character of the arc's perspective for most of it, which is typically the same character for most of the arcs, but they do mix it
Does
up
it?
occasionally.
Does it have the same characters for every series?
Yes.
Okay.
It's basically like the same characters going through different problems. Now, the thing that makes it, I'd say, better than other shows of the type is that it is very much character based. It's like the issues are always tied into like some sort of like psychological or like emotional issue of the characters themselves, and like it's never really the main character like solving it by like being some sort of hero. It's more like the characters just kind of like working through the problems themselves after talking to the main character, which is really kind of fun, I'd say. And what makes this season work in particular is because like they introduced this new character who had like some kind of minor appearances here and there in previous stuff, because the entire or all of the series basically don't like come out in chronological order.
Okay.
So what makes this fun is because like, the new character basically just kind of adds another spin to the main character's perspective, in that like every single conversation they have is like he's being manipulated into like thinking certain things through each conversation. So she'll be like, "Oh, hey, you said you were going to take me out for sushi," and he'll think, "Did I say that? I guess I did." And he'll just keep following like the line like of logic he was just like told.
Okay.
So like a huge crux of this season is like him just kind of like being kind of led through these like issues, like in solving problems, like while being kind of led along for the ride.
It's still the same guy from the earlier seasons, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Are they still cutting like to like text like in between scenes?
Yeah. Well, they don't. They have a lot more interesting visual design, like I'd say in the more recent seasons, because they have more budget. But yeah, like a thing that the show does is basically it's adapted from a light novel, but it like gets around this issue by like basically just cutting in like just lines of text like in like various scenes where it just shows his internal thoughts like the focus character.
It does that like fucking I don't know how many times. Like it does it a whole bunch like in one episode, right?
Yeah.
And like wasn't that due to like just to save like cost?
I believe so.
I think that's what DL told me like back in like the first season or some shit.
Yeah, I believe they did do that back in the first season, and then they just kept doing it because it worked. Like
it did sell an obscene amount, so I guess people liked it.
But yeah, like a fun thing about the particular visual design of the series, like because it follows the main character's perspective, a lot of things are exaggerated in the way that the main character sees them.
Mm-hmm.
Like if a character is like too close to him, it'll show the character kind of like maybe occasionally wrap around him essentially, and like it shows like the entire like each scene is like a pretty standard generic like school scene or a field scene, but it's always like oddly visually designed in like a sense that makes it more captivating. Like for one scene in this season where like they're like in a shoe locker room, like they like every single locker basically flashes to a different color while they're just having a conversation as to like make it seem kind of more out of focus. And it works for the sake of like drawing more like focus to the characters in the scene themselves, like because of how out of place they seem, which draws you more into the conversation. So I really like that aspect of the show, and basically that's it.
So would you say, like, how would you rate this season compared to the past ones?
I would say this season was pretty strong for the most part. There wasn't really any arc that I'd say was necessarily weak. Like a few season, or like I guess a couple seasons prior, like there were some arcs that were pretty kind of ineffectual in the sense that they just didn't really cover any real new ground. They just kind of like reiterated past stuff with adding like new situations.
So
but
recap?
Well, not a recap so much as like they just solved the same problem with a different like I guess plot. Like the plots were basically following the same sorts of issues they covered before, but again. Whereas this one felt very fresh in that it basically covered like new aspects of character relationships, added new characters who had different relationships to like the other characters, and it was just kind of like a thoroughly entertaining ride, I'd say.
Okay, well, good job, Mule. You talked about that all by yourself.
He's a big
I know
boy.
this is never easy.
Don't clap for Mule.
I didn't even watch it, and I still contributed. Jesus.
Thank you, Kenny. You helped.
Two people we least expected to carry something on their own did it together.
Okay, so I'm gonna take over this next part.
Ew.
And for this segment, we're actually gonna do something that we've never.
Oh my
done
god!
before
It's the big one, guys. It's the fucking shit harem wars.
Oh my
no,
God.
shut up. You're wrong, and I'll tell you why you're wrong in a minute.
Look, Steve. I'm just.
Oh no, shut up! I gotta introduce
I'm
this.
just ruffling your feathers. Come on, Steve. Sorry.
Well, you did a good job. So the two shows are the Asterisk War, which will be referred to hereafter as Asterisk, and Chivalry of a Failed Knight, which will be hereafter referred to as Cavalry.
We're gonna call it Cavalry, really?
Wait, what?
Yes, that's what everyone calls it.
No, they call it Rakudai.
Why?
No, I call it Cavalry because it's in the title.
But it says chivalry.
Yeah,
I know it does, but it's in the Japanese
Steve,
title.
you need to add Taimadou Gakuen San.
No, we're talking
No,
about
that's
I call
definitely
it-
that's mine. That's
Whoa.
mine, motherfucker.
Shut up, Collin. For God's sake, shut the fuck up.
But Steve, that was
Steve.
also a school academy.
No,
thing.
it's not, and we'll talk about it later. Go ahead, Kenny.
Well, both are basically the same anime, which I kept getting confused
Well,
watching.
well, let me do my bit here, and then we'll talk about
Real quick
it.
before you do, Steve, because I'm not going to have anything to say about either of these shows because I did not watch them. I just want to ask,
Okay.
what kind of fucking casual goes by the English title?
Okay, I went to
'Cause
Japan.
I don't want to read.
I'm the authority here.
You guys make fun of me whenever I read Japanese, so I'm not doing it.
It's okay, you have Shellblade here to help bear that cross.
Okay, so the Asterisk War is it's a school battle anime, and it stars your typical male protagonist. And in the show, he's one of the lowest ranked students at the school. But despite of that, he's actually one of the most powerful students, except for the fact that his powers have like very specific limitations, and he can't use them all the time.
So
and
hold on.
and through various lewd circumstances, he comes to meet the main female protagonist, who is a princess from a foreign country and who has a fire-based power set, and she has pink hair. Now, Cavalry is a school battle anime starring your typical male protagonist, who is one of the lowest-ranked students at this school, but is in fact also one of the most powerful ones, except for the fact that his powers have specific limitations. And through loose circumstances, he meets the main female protagonist, who is a princess from a foreign country, who has a fire-based power set, and who has slightly darker pink hair. There you go. And the thing
You
about
can see
that
why
is,
this gets so fucking confusing.
yeah, but the thing is,
I swear
the shows have like almost identical first episodes on top of it. But I will say, once you get past that, there is a clear separation in terms of.
Let's not
shows.
pretend that for the next couple episodes we were thinking to ourselves, "Wait, what show is this character from?"
Yes,
No,
and
it was.
I mentioned at one time I got confused because in one show the main character has a younger sister, and the other one the main character has an older sister.
There you go.
So for a while I kept thinking one character had two sisters and the other had both sisters. But by the end of the first arc of each show, there's a clear separation in terms of quality of these shows. Where I think the Asterisk War, I enjoyed it. It's a fun little show, but it's also the very much by the numbers school battle anime harem shit. So if you're not into that, it's not going to interest you. Cavalry is not. If anyone tells you this is a harem anime, it is absolutely not.
Yeah, go
It is.
fuck yourself.
It's
if you
a
think so.
clear romance story by the end of the first arc, and that's what kind of set it apart in my mind right away. Is how many anime
It's not like Steve.
have characters who
I honestly don't think
can't confess their feelings to one another. Never mind by the end of the first arc, by the end of the series, it almost never happens. So by episode 4, you have these characters who've already confessed to one another and they're going out. So it just took me completely off guard of how quick they jumped into this being something different.
The only other harem anime that I can think of that did something like that is Zero no Sakaima.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing.
Honestly, I can't think of any other one.
But even then, it took them a while to get it on. But in this one, it's Cavalry's clearly not a harem because there's only 2 girls in the entire series who want his dick, and there's clearly pushing him with one of them.
But Steve, there's Alice.
To the fact that I don't even know why they introduced a rival love character, who by the way is actually his sister. It just felt so out of place because clearly Icky and Stella Icky and Stella.
Her name's like
Are you serious?
That's his name.
No, it's Icky, but the main character of Metabots also had that name, and in the English dub they called him Icky. So I'm just sticking with Icky.
That can't be right.
It's Iki.
Um,
But,
So,
whatever.
Collin, go ahead because I know like you've been wanting to talk about these two shows as well.
Yeah. So a lot of praise for Cavalry comes from the fact that Iki and Stella are in a relationship. And while that is somewhat refreshing that Stella is upfront with her feelings, I think that she is overall a weak character and far from best girl of the season. And if you're
Completely disagree.
And just because, and she can't be best girl of the season just because she wants to get laid. If that's your criteria for what makes a best girl, then I got plenty of American 3D PD shows with lots of best girls on them for you, Steve.
But we're not talking about that. We're talking about anime.
But Iki and Stella being in a relationship doesn't feel like Cavalry's strength to me. It feels like anime's weakness.
I completely disagree.
Like just anime in general.
Colin, would you mind me interjecting for a second?
No. Stella
great.
herself,
Okay.
Stella has she feels like she has no history. And she doesn't generate any interest in her history. I don't know why she fights. I don't really care. And she serves very little purpose as a character until I will admit, the excellent final 2 episodes of this show. Where even then she serves a bit more as a plot device as a character. We don't even see Stella fight once in this show.
Yeah, we do.
But her matches always end very quickly because she's the most powerful student at the school.
Who got wrecked by Iki. By Darth Icky. So
But, I mean, the point is more that it's not her story. It's very much Iki's story.
Yeah, I get
Iki's
that.
story. But
I just
get
don't
what
find
you're
Stella
saying.
particularly interesting as a love interest or just as a character.
Maybe if you take all fiction in general, I guess I can see that. But I mean, in terms of anime, I think she is, and I think that's an important distinction to make because there needs to be more characters like her. There needs to be more characters who can admit not only to herself but to other people that she's actually insecure, which I don't think I've ever seen another anime character do.
True.
That was kind of the moment that stood out to me.
Could we also point out that Collin's opinions on anime should be taken lightly because he's not a well-seasoned anime watcher?
Well, to add some
But
credibility,
I'll
to
tell you
Colin-
this much: I'm a well-seasoned real TV watcher,
I mean, no one
so
watched that
I
shit
know
by
it's
Colin,
actually
so-
good and not trash.
Okay.
Heyo.
No
So
one
you know
cares
what?
about
Let
Fargo.
me have a brief aside here, because as a, I guess, newly minted animan, I kind of occupy a unique.
I don't think
Place
you deserve
here.
that title.
No. Look, because I'd watch Western shows and I'd watch Western animated shows, watch fucking cartoons,
Because you're a
babies.
herb. Okay.
And it's interesting because when I got into anime, I said to you guys that Western shows have a lot of restrictions with their material or what they want to put or what they have to put in order to keep their show or keep their whatever channel they're on going.
Talk about
And
ratings.
that includes a lot of merchandise pandering and whatnot. And it usually involves pandering to kids or changing things because your audience is kids. And anime initially seemed like when I was just starting to get into this shit, it seemed like it didn't have those sorts of restrictions. It just has different restrictions.
How naive.
Yes, right? Anyway, that's just kind of a brief aside for me.
Yeah, I don't want to get too much a tangent about the industry.
Yes, I
but-
know.
I
But it's
did
interesting because don't worry, I'll tie it back.
Okay, go ahead.
Because I was down on. I don't find Stella particularly interesting, but yes, it is refreshing, and yes, it is a step in the right direction. That not only can you do this sort of thing, have the characters in a relationship, you can also have the character be popular because Stella is very well liked even in Japan. She's not quite Kirin, who is a boring non-character, but she's cute. I'll admit that. She's not. Kirin was more popular than Stella, if you didn't know, Steve.
Yeah, I saw the polls.
But
Were
yeah,
they right?
it's certainly
No.
nice that
I don't
they
know about that.
were able to have a relative success with Cavalry. I want to talk about Iki for a second here. Is that okay if I shift focus from Stella to Iki? Because I know you guys
That's
really
fine.
like Stella. If you have any other things to say about Stella, because I know you really like the character, Steve.
That's fine.
I do have something actually.
Well,
Fuck.
no,
Okay.
like well, if I could just jump to the last episode,
Yeah, sure.
yeah, the fat ass deserved it.
All right.
Obviously.
Hey, don't bully Pachinko.
Okay, so to add into the discussion up until this point, like I do like the idea that Stella and Iki have an actual sort of relationship, but the problem is the way the show, or the problem I had was the way the show goes about it, and I discussed this with Collin on another occasion, and the issue is like they're in a relationship, but the show would never actually have, there'd be no difference to like any events in the show if they weren't, because they go about their relationship as though basically nothing changes from the first episode till like even after they're in the relationship. And
Okay, well that's fine,
Well-
but the show gives justification for that. A and B. I don't think you need to rush them all the way to fucking by the end of like the 12th episode.
well, no, the problem I have is that, like it basically just, it's a harem show that basically like has a,
It's not a harem.
it's a harem
It's
to the
not.
extent that Familiar of Zero is a harem. It's a harem with a cute gimmick that it doesn't
No,
quite
it's not
take
because there's
advantage
no
of,
other.
I'd
There's
say.
only one other girl who wants his dick. You need at least 3.
Well, there's also the sword girl who
But,
kind of
but
wants to want
science,
Just because there's a girl doesn't mean she wants him though.
She does,
Saya,
though.
God damn it, Steve. Saya has feelings for him though.
That's the other anime.
Wait, God damn it. Never mind.
That one is a harem,
Wait,
and like
I thought Kenny was just being cheeky.
I'm thinking.
He actually mixed them up.
It's just like I said. They're fucking. You mix the two shows together. It's fucking
like
confusing.
this is kind of falling apart because I wanted the discussion to be like a contrast between them. But
Yes,
Colin,
we're mostly just talking about Cavalry, and that's fine.
yes, talk about Icky.
Yeah, we'll talk about Darth Icky here. And I'll do a comparison with Ayato because they're fairly similar characters. The only difference is that Ayato is a Marlon Blando.
Heyo.
And Iki, despite he's mostly pretty bland. We get a brief glimpse at personality in the first episode where he attempts to remove his clothes in front of Stella. That was a funny moment, and it endeared me to his character for a while until he lost some steam for me. Because he didn't have as much personality as I was expecting him to.
And then you
But
gave away your credit card information.
At the very least, Iki has a lot of passion for what he does. They even note that in that pretty good fight scene with the punk character. Oh, by the way, the direction in Cavalry is so much better than something like this should ever get.
Yeah, and especially the last 2 episodes, like you mentioned, where they just like say "fuck it, we're going for it."
Yeah, the show looks fantastic. So Iki also is, I feel like both of these characters are kind of Gary Stews. But
as most male.
yes,
anime
Iki
protagonists
is
are.
a little bit safer though, because the matches in Cavalry have a lot more stakes to them. They can threaten your life. And the fact that Iki actually struggles and gets the shit beaten out of him during his matches. And so it feels a lot more satisfying when he eventually triumphs. Even though I feel like there's going to be a bit more of an uphill battle for Ayato towards the latter half, because he's 2-core right now. They're a 2-core show, whereas Cavalry
Yes,
is a
yeah.
1-core show. Iki gets everything he wants pretty fast. Within a couple episodes, he's gotten the girl. He doesn't just best his rival. He humiliates him, like piss his pants, humiliates him. And he's won like the trust and respect of the student council, and all the people that were booing him are already cheering him on. It's like why does Charlie Brown get the football taken away from him, right? Right? It's because we need to see Charlie fail. And Iki kicks the football every time,
See, but I'm a person who wants to see Charlie kick the football.
No, we all want to see Charlie kick the football, but
No, I don't think you do.
he has to fail, so that when he
can't not
eventually
kick the
kicks the
football.
football, it's great.
But it's different because the stakes are different.
Yeah.
Because like he literally can't lose.
No, I get that. I feel like they could have had, but like they could have had him lose outside of the tournament.
I guess so. Yeah. Like they do with Ayato.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, that was really low stakes by comparison.
Yeah, and I do want to say before we get too far off of this, I made a big deal about this when the season started, how great the opening was, and I was waiting the whole season for at some point the art style to switch to that art style, the one from the opening, and when it does it during the final battle, dude, that was fucking great.
Okay, so the first time they did it, I was very underwhelmed, because it felt like they were just trying to disguise the CGI in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
The second time they did it, you want to talk about the one punchman, you know, this is the best one-hit kill of the season. You know, this was fucking great. These last 2 episodes won me over for this show. I was going to walk away from this show going, it was okay. I didn't feel like it completely wasted my time. The last 2 episodes of Cavalry made me say it was worth watching because it took the relationship and it actually made it relevant to the plot, how it affected the characters, especially even the last 3 episodes. Because you can see how much it's really affected the little sister's character as well, which is that's a great fight. Again, this show got like all of Silverlink's budget this season, and I'm going to talk about that later.
Yeah.
But good for them that they did, because they really did. They did a great job of elevating the material. So yeah, really, really solid in the final 2 episodes.
Yeah, I was gonna make that point too. Is where like, I would not like. I didn't want to recommend this show to anyone who like was like even thinking about watching it early on, but I totally would now after watching those last 2 episodes. It's not just a good anime for this genre. It is a good anime. Period.
So what you're saying is it gets good after the first 60 hours?
It's the Final Fantasy 13 of anime.
As another little side note, I have to say I really loved how like the opening basically just changed like ever so slightly every single arc. Like you could see like, oh, who's he gonna fight next? Like, and they just have like a whole animation for that character fighting him like at the end of the opening. It was just a really nice little touch there that I liked.
And like, if you want to talk the contrast between these 2 animes, I guess you could say the difference amount of time we spent talking about them is like a seal of approval for one over the other.
Okay, but we are.
But I did want to say something about Asterisk.
We are going to go into Asterisk. So,
but I don't see. The thing is,
Steve, can I ask you something real quick?
Yes,
when they incarcerate Icky, like I don't know what I missed, but like, why are they treating him like so shitty?
Because they wanted him to lose.
That was the sole reason.
Well, yes,
Dad sees him as a failure, and the government that Stella, whatever random European government that Japan is cucking in this anime, they are not a fan of their pretty princess dating an on paper loser.
Okay, so Asterisk.
Okay.
In terms of things I liked about the show, like I think it's very simple. It's very generic. That's not what I like about it. But I'm just setting up. I'm just setting up what I want to talk about.
It's very generic, though. Yes.
Yeah, there's not a lot to talk about in terms of that show. But the one thing I really liked about it was I thought I had a way better setting than Cavalry. Cavalry has like a more contemporary setting, where Asterisk is like very much in the future.
Fuck you! It's the future. We can do what we want.
Yes, and I like that a lot more. I like the fact that Asterisk gets to the main tournament a lot faster, whereas Cavalry is just about the preliminaries and it ends with them advancing. Like a little more than halfway into Asterisk, they're already at the main tournament, so it doesn't waste a lot of time, which is good because it's not as interesting. So just get to the meat of the show faster, which is what it did. Mm-hmm. And I'm always down for a good tournament arc, so
yeah,
I'm happy that it got there.
It also, Asterisk has a little bit more going on in its world, just in general.
It's a much bigger universe.
Yeah, Iki, Cavalry is really just Iki's story, whereas Asterisk seems to have this underlying conspiracy going on, between these different struggling powers in the schools, We haven't quite gotten to anything with it yet, but they're cooking us something up, you know?
Yeah. It's one of those things I can't help but think they talked about a lot of those schools more in the novel, whereas in the anime they just haven't touched.
I mean, they've got
yet.
26 or 24. I think it's 24.
Probably.
Well,
24.
I've got 12 more episodes to go into detail, so let's hope they don't fucking blow it.
Yes.
Because out of the 3 shows that are somewhat similar, this is the only one that got 2 cores, and it was the one that I really wished out of the 3 that it didn't. Because I found it the least interesting.
Yeah,
particularly,
it was decided well in advance.
No character compensates for Ayato being uninteresting because all of the girls in his harem, they are all pretty. You've seen every one of these characters before.
But I still think Claudia is interesting.
Claudia, I was going to note exactly that.
Gee, I wonder why Claudia is interesting.
No,
it's
I don't
not
mean
just that.
I don't mean that.
It is
like,
because of that.
Claudia's status as like the mature, overly forward girl, that's bland and doesn't really interest me at all. I mean, some of the stuff they had going on with kind of her secret past and kind of like what she's doing to pull the strings behind the scenes. That's interesting. Euless, I want to like Euless quite a bit. Just because I have to compare to Iki and Stella. Ayato and Euless seem to have a bit more development or time dedicated to them getting to their relationship. Although it's all obviously up in the air whether or not they're actually going to end with it.
I agree, but like if you look at the last episode, like it was almost to that point. And then, of course, typical anime, just
But like you can see Euless's character arc, like every little beat of it, and she also has that thing, that tsundere thing that they do, where any sort of affection or niceties, they always react defensively to it, and it's like it's okay for the character to be high strung, but this is not how people talk or react to when people are being nice to them, you know?
Yeah, but
and it just bothers me. She doesn't. It's like there are moments where she feels like she's developing. You know, she feels like she's a character, and they do this shit, and it kind of pulls it back
to
for
anime,
me.
Collin.
Exactly. You haven't watched enough of this shit.
This is also another show that got solid direction overall. That probably got better direction than it deserves.
It could have been a mess because, like you said, there's a lot going on.
It does a poor job of reminding you what characters' motivations are. Like, Ayato is searching for his sister.
Which he seems to forget.
Yeah, it seems like they want the audience to forget about this because they barely mention that shit.
It mentions it in the first episode, and I don't think it mentioned
in the last
episode. I think at any point it doesn't mention it like at all. Like
what is Saya's motivation? What is Euless's motivation? I think
Saya's motivation is to prove like
her father's weapons aren't garbage.
Yeah,
okay.
Basically.
I can't remember these characters' motivations. I think I kind of remember Kirin having some drama with her father and her uncle, who are like in a power struggle, or is her father dead, or is her father like in a coma? No, the coma father was Cavalry. Never mind.
See, you're making fun of me for mixing shit up. What were you saying, Steve?
I was gonna say Euless is the only one I don't really understand, other than just like she just wants to be the best, I guess.
Yes,
no one ever was.
I felt a little bad for Midriffman, because Midriffman, I liked where he was going, and it feels like they've dropped his character at this point.
But it's still nice that they kept him around because he felt like a one-note villain that would just be discarded.
Yeah,
and they gave him a bit more than that.
And then this has a great OP and a great ED.
Dude, best opening and ending of the season.
The opening is really good.
I think Concrete Revolutio has a better sounding opening. Obviously, I think Asterisk has a flashier looking one. But from the music perspective,
actually, I disagree.
With what?
Best opening thing of the season.
What do you feel is the best opening of the season?
Testament.
Oh, okay. I have not watched that show. Perhaps we'll touch upon it later. Steve?
Probably not.
Okay.
Probably not,
I'm not
but
going to touch upon it.
I'm just
throwing
everyone
it out
take
there.
note.
And
we're like an hour and a half in, and we've only talked about like 5
it's
anime.
cool. Don't worry. We're doing okay. We're doing okay. These are probably going to be the longest ones until we get to my spiel on anti-magic and my spiel on Conrevo.
Okay.
God.
But
Hang in
lastly,
there,
I just want
Kenny.
to touch upon how the ED bleeds into the scene for I think every episode, and they do it perfectly every episode.
I love
And
it
it's
when anime
great.
does that.
And then
Yes.
the OP, which is hype as fuck, and Steve disagrees with me. I feel like it was. It was a bit of a wet fart at the end for me.
Nah.
For the scene they used it for in episode 12. Darn it.
They had to use it or lose it.
I know, but it's just there's nothing really flashy going on. It's just him jumping and then hitting.
It's the final
and
battle.
then hitting
It
the
doesn't matter.
scythe out of Irene, but they say Irene because Japan.
Japan.
Out of Irene's hand and then breaking the scythe.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure they pronounce it Irene, but whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. It doesn't matter. It's all goofy shit.
Yes.
Speaking of goofy shit, Matt,
Oh boy.
Oh, it's time.
step up to the plate and tell us about your experience with Osomatsu-san, or as Anime News likes to call it, Mr. Osomatsu.
Oh my god.
Okay, I'm gonna go take a piss. I'll be right back.
Okay, well,
just kidding.
this isn't gonna be that long actually, but there's not really all that much to talk about the show. But this is a slice of life / kind of gag comedy / parody show about 6 brothers, 6 sextuplets.
6 same faces.
Yes, 6 same faces, who, like, one of the, well, it's a reboot of a classic 60s manga that was also a show, and then it was remade into a show again in the 80s, and now this is a brand new show that's different because in the original, they're all, like, grade schoolers, like 10, 11, 12, somewhere in that range. And in this takes place about a decade later, where they're all in their 20s, and it's in modern Japan instead of, 60s Japan. And the big draw of the show is that each brother, they all look very, very similar, but they all have unique personalities that makes them all set apart from one another, and along with that, they all have physical differences as well to tell them apart.
Ones, yeah. If you
Subtle.
can't tell them apart by episode 4, you can get fucked, Funk.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there's Osomatsu, who's essentially the leader. He is
leader of the bunch.
Yeah, he tends to be the catalyst of a lot of things that happen in the show.
He's also kind of attention starved and kind of needy.
Yeah, he's generally immature. He's referred to as bullheaded. And he's also basically just kind of happy-go-lucky in a way. Not really, like, he's kind of normal compared to the others. There's Karamatsu, who is the cool guy. He always wears sunglasses. He always wears super.
Even at night.
Yes, I'm pretty sure he does.
He has his own. Karamatsu has his own theme.
Oh yeah, he does. He has his own
Theme of Karamatsu.
Which is great.
He wears flashy clothing, which is often which is a recurring joke that happens. And the one thing about him is, among his brothers, he is by far the least liked, especially by another brother, Ichimatsu, who actually celebrates in one episode when they discover that he has been kidnapped and is about to drown.
That was one of the funniest ones.
Yeah. And the ironic thing, though, is that in real life, he is by far the most loved character on the show.
Yeah.
Like he in the show.
I mean, they've done a couple of polls, but like see Karamatsu grow and grow and grow in popularity until now he like dwarfs everybody.
Oh yeah, it's second place, like the second place brother, like in comparison is usually always like half of what his is now. And he literally does now have Karamatsu girls, as he refers to. Then there's Choromatsu, the virgin hero. He is the worrywart of the group. He's usually frowning, has like a upside down V for the mouth. That's how you can tell him apart very easily.
And he has no cowlicks.
He has no cowlicks, that's true as well. He is essentially the straight man of the group, and usually when something doesn't seem right, he's always the one to point it out. And he is also an idol otaku. He loves idols, and is also behind... he also is the manager for another character named Tomoko. Or Totoko. I always mix that up. But he is her manager as a fish idol. And also they all have colors to associate with them. With like Osomatsu is red, Kawamatsu is blue, Choromatsu is green. Then you have Ichimatsu, who is
My boy.
Yeah. He's probably the easiest one to tell apart from the others because he has super messy hair and he has sleepy eyes.
Yeah.
And he is a super pessimistic, social outcast, self-loathing guy. What?
Loner.
Yeah, loner. And he's probably the second favorite among
he is.
audience. Yeah.
And then Jushimatsu after him.
Yeah.
Also my boy.
And also Ichimatsu loves cats as well, which
Like
comes
most
up in-
social outcasts.
and then there's Jushimatsu, who is associated with yellow. He's also very easy to distinguish from the others because his mouth is always agape in joy. He is super hyperactive. He's a goofball. And he's... Yes, Juicy. Juicy Matsu has kind of become his nickname because it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to say Jushi Matsu, but
It's really not.
it's not. But it's easier to say Juicy. But he is essentially the Ed of the group.
We're going deep on the references here.
Okay.
By
and
Ed,
then
you
the
mean
last-
Edward Elric, right?
Yes.
Get out.
As in Ed and
Jesus.
Nettie Ed.
Oh, I thought
But-
you meant Edward Elric.
No.
You didn't.
Oh, I thought you
And-
meant Ed the horse.
No.
You mean Mr.
That's
Ed?
Mr. Ed.
Oh shit.
Edson.
There's too many Eds. Okay. And then last...
I thought
and
you
then-
meant like a riverbank comprised of sands.
All right, okay. There's only one more.
Well, he is, and of course, last and definitely least is Totomatsu. He is associated with pink, and he is just in terms of physical differences, you can always tell him apart because he always has the cute cat mouth. He is very effeminate, and
He's the
is-
youngest.
He looks distinctly
He's-
younger than the rest.
Yes, he is the youngest one, even though they're all sextuplets. But whatever.
They give him it's very subtle. They give him slightly larger pupils.
Oh yeah,
Just
that's
barely.
yeah. I think I have noticed that. He's also very spoiled, and he's always on his phone as well, and he's essentially a wannabe normal fag because
He's the DL of the group.
yes, he hates his brothers and tries to disassociate himself from them as much as possible, and often refers to
Leads
them
to
as
one of the best skits
Yes.
in the entire show.
one of the best skits in the show involves him, and it is amazing.
Yeah, it's actually it's a triumph of comedy.
Yeah,
And
and wait, what are you gonna say?
I was just gonna go off just in general regarding the show.
Oh, I was also just gonna say that he is by far the least favorite. of
Yes,
all
he
the
is
brothers.
definitely the least favorite. But yeah, I feel like it's just people reacting to his character when that's how he's supposed to be.
Yeah, which is kind of ironic as well because he in the show, the characters around him seem to like him the most, or at least seem to
Yes.
give him a lot of attention. I know, like one thing I read is that his parents spoiled him like crazy when he was a kid.
Yes, and
So
but they start to have him play a bit more of the straight man later on, which is actually a very good role for him.
Yeah,
because he's. I'm really hoping in the next quarter they kind of give Chodomatsu a little bit more to do, because Chodomatsu has proven that he's a funnier straight man than him.
Yeah.
Which is kind of unfortunate for old Choro. So if they can do a bit more with his otaku faggotry in the next quarter, you'd probably be able to squeeze some comedy out of that. And it's funny, God, this show is so fucking funny.
It is.
And they were able to bring these guys into the modern era, but they had to do some heavy adjustments. And comedy, when people stick their nose up at modern comedy, I get a little angry, because it's like, man, motherfucker, you didn't laugh that much at old comedy. Because old comedy, it's funny, yeah, but comedy changes with time. Yeah, and there's going to come a time in the future where people don't find Osomatsu-san as funny as we do right now.
Yeah.
So they there's a specific character that is they acknowledge that his brand of comedy is pretty antiquated.
Yeah,
and that is Iyami, who used to be a Japanese cultural icon. His pose, his shit, right?
Yes, he was actually the main character of the '80s version of Osomatsu-kun. Oh, that's the other thing. The original show is Osomatsu-kun, not Osomatsu-san.
Yes.
Yeah, they were all black in that version.
Now he's a big boy. And while they certainly don't give up on Iyami's share,
no,
very few of them manage to garner even a smile.
Yeah,
really? You don't like the Shay?
It's a little bit charming, but really it doesn't. I don't find it particularly funny. If I were to say who I thought the funniest side character was, it would definitely be Totoko, and then Chibita, and then Iyami and Dekapon are kind of tied, and then Dayon is a character I don't think I ever really pegged what the hell Dayon was for.
I love Dayon.
What position he occupies within skits.
He's just there for goofy.
I think he's just an agent of chaos.
Yeah. I mean, there's that. So obviously, sometimes he's just walking behind Iyami and he's just like Dayon, and other times he's throwing people in holes in the therapy office, or is like that's the skit where him and Dekapon are walking through like a tundra.
Lots of people don't like that skit, and I love it.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. It was. They show the flashbacks of them being together and all their good times, and then he immediately kills them. And they do that a lot. They bait and switch you a couple times with the pathos in the show. One of the earlier ones is in episode 2, which is Osomatsu focused, where he goes and he sees each of his brothers and no one wants to spend time with him, and he goes to see Chibita, who was their rival originally. And Chibita waxes nostalgic to him about how he was actually envious of the fact that they had such a close brotherly relationship. And then Osomatsu fires back with, having 5 brothers doesn't give you 12 friends, it gives you 12 enemies. And then he goes home and he finds that all of his brothers have replaced him with someone else.
With some random nobody.
Which is some random guy. And then they have probably the best gag in the series. We talked about it earlier. Oh man, actually, you know what? I'm not going to spoil this one. It's the one that comes at the end of episode 5. And I'm not, if any of you guys are interested in watching this, I will not spoil this gag.
Yeah,
because it's so...
I do want to mention episodes 5 and especially episode 9.
Yes, you thought they couldn't go deeper after episode 5, and then they did.
Yeah, because here's the thing. This is like a very goofy, raunchy, just silly show. But then out of nowhere, in episode 5, they suddenly get really dramatic. And they actually pull it off really well.
Yes, they stick the landing amazingly.
Which one is that? The one with Jushimatsu?
That's the one with Ichimatsu.
Episode 9 is Jushimatsu.
Yeah, and basically episode 5 involves Ichimatsu and his essentially it involves his like his loneliness and his like his
Self-loathing.
mind, his self-loathing and all that stuff, and it really hits close to home. And
I think I see a lot of shows like gag comedies, especially Western ones these days. Lighthearted shows. They try to do the drama episode.
oh yeah,
right?
I
And
know.
usually, and people eat it up on places like fucking Tumblr or even Co.
I know I've seen Family Guy try it a few times, and it's just terrible.
Yeah, well, it's like shows like Adventure Time or Steve Universe, shows like that too. They have their drama episode. Even We Bear Bears gave it a shot, and it always feels insincere for me because the restrictions on Western animated shows usually means that they have to pull back and they can't commit enough to it. But people eat it up anyway because it's so rare to even get that. And Osomatsu fully commits to it, and that's why it sticks the landing so incredibly in these 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Also,
And-
just want a brief aside for the visuals of the show. Everything is drawn with blue lines, and everything looks very soft, and I like that.
Oh yeah, it looks great. I love the art style. It's
Yeah,
very.
and it's done by Perot, who is usually not that great looking. I know this because I watched enough Naruto to know that.
Naru.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm sure you can empathize with.
I also like to say it does look very kind of nostalgic in a way. Like the art style reminds me.
They kept the Showa era art style completely intact.
It very much reminds me of that old classic kind of very colorful art style. And oh yeah, I guess I do want to kind of go into episode 9 a little bit, which involves Jushimatsu.
Do we want to spoil this for the fellows on the podcast?
Well,
Yeah.
I don't think we should.
I mean, it's up to you, but I mean, we should probably get moving on
Okay.
soon. So if you just want to be the last
Well,
thing, you can touch on it.
I also want to say my piece on this once he's done.
Okay.
Okay.
I just want to say it involves a romance, and
And a lot of hustle.
it does. Yes, a lot of hustle and a lot of muscle,
And plenty of muscle.
and it just amazes me how well it tackles so many themes in just one episode that animes fail at doing in an entire season. It's like the relationship between him.
Now, I hate to be a Kenny, but how would you know?
Okay, fair enough. But like, I guess like just to make a comparison with Perfect Insider, like the relationship between those two is decent, but it's not like great. And then you see them do this in one episode, and not even like a 24, not even in like, because that wasn't the whole episode. It was just
they had like 6
part.
minutes. They had like 6 minutes of a Katamatsu segment.
Yeah, and it's done
So.
completely believably and well done, and it's like Jesus, they actually managed to pull this off.
They absolute madmen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I think
Funko-
really works about it is that they didn't sacrifice the comedy to do it either. Like they
Oh, yeah.
interspersed the comedy like greatly into the relationship itself to make it just flow that much better.
Yeah.
Funk, you want to?
Yeah, one thing I wanted to say about the show, just in general, and I thoroughly enjoyed the show, and I'm going to continue to enjoy it into its second core, was that the interactions between the 6 brothers, the main characters, feel very real. As somebody who grew up with a lot of siblings,
Yes,
it really just seems authentic the way that they play off of one another.
I was
and the way
going
that
to note that actually, but thank you because I forgot about it. I had it right in my notes in front of me. I would have blown it. Thank you,
Because
Fun.
most of the time they're of course at each other's throats and they're very critical of each other, and then like they'll reluctantly band together when they have to, and then instantly get back at each other's throats, which is a very realistic family dynamic.
I really liked whenever they would be where they would go and just drink at
Yes.
Yeah.
Kibita's little bar. That was all. It was always nice just seeing them together. Sometimes it has its comfy moments. You can
And-
say.
Episode 9 had that as well, so just great episode all around.
Yeah.
So it was a great show, still is.
Oh,
Sounds like you guys covered it all.
Cool.
the music is also really good.
Yeah, this season might not have been the best season for anime, but it was a pretty good season for music.
It has some hidden gems.
For music, at least.
hmm
One last little mention I want to say is like,
Why
I
do we
think-
talk about Osomatsu so long? It's a fucking gag show.
aside from the clip show episode, I have to say this is probably the only show I've ever watched where I actually laughed at every single episode of the show.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny every episode.
Go ahead, Steve.
Are we good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Collin,
Yes, sir.
if you can keep the discussion of this next show under an hour, I'll be thankful.
Okay.
Why don't you tell us your love of concrete?
Okay, so we're
Revolutio?
going to
Fuck
concrete
me in the
first.
ass.
Okay.
So,
God.
can I ask a question? Colin, can I ask you something real quick?
Yes, you may.
So, as we were discussing earlier, I actually started watching this show today,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm quite enthralled with it, and I want to finish it. So, is there any way you can discuss this without, I don't know how heavy
I will
spoilers
do
are?
my absolute best
Okay.
to not spoil what I can for you, okay?
Okay.
Okay. So, this show is without a doubt my favorite show of the season. And let me tell you all this. I will take an ambitious show that's flawed in its pacing sometimes, and maybe too eager to start the timeline jumping. But that it manages to do a lot good, and it managed to look good doing it, and I would take it over a safer, tighter show any day. I will probably remember Concrete Revolutio for years afterwards more vividly than anything else this season. And that includes great shows like One Punch Man, and and even Osomatsu. Those are both great shows, but this is better. And
Sounds like a glowing God, what was the word? I
Recommendation?
totally forgot.
okay,
Yes, God,
so
I just had a fucking brain
this
fart.
anime is directed by just fun fact. It's directed by the guy who did Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and he was also, for those of you who were fans of this, and I know you guys were, to my knowledge, this director was also the inspiration for the character in Shirobako, who was the director in that show.
Oh
Yes.
my God!
Kidding
So,
me.
Concrete Revolutio, the superhuman phantasmagoria, it is inspired by Watchmen. And who has anyone here read Watchmen?
Oh yeah.
I watched
Okay,
the
you
movie.
watched
I've read
you watched the inferior adaptation, which did its best, but stumbled a little too much for me to say it was good.
No giant
Um,
squid in the movie, bro.
I did actually get that vibe from the show when I watched
Yes,
it.
it is heavily inspired by Watchmen, and you can totally see that. And the idea of a of Japan creating a cultural equivalent of Watchmen is so exciting as a concept. And we probably say this all the time: is I liked the concept, but I really didn't feel the execution. Fuck that. The execution in Concrete Revolutio is superb.
Colin, I feel bad for you because like what you just said, you're the only one who's gonna remember this show.
I know, I absolutely know.
And I feel bad for
That's
you.
not necessarily true.
Because I get to remember this
No,
show.
but it was not popular.
Yeah, I
at all.
understand. I fully understand that it's not good. It's not going to do well. It's way too ambitious for that. It's way too confusing to just audiences that are just jumping into it. But it's a fantastic show, and you see it. You see in Watchmen, they take superhero archetypes from the Silver and Bronze Age, and it puts them in a real world setting and constructs a parallel Earth history of the time that's been adjusted because of the interference of superheroes. And that's the exact same thing in Concrete Revolutio, where it takes Showa era anime and manga heroes, and it puts them all in the same world and shows how they affect the politics of the time. And this is something we miss out on by being round eyes, but Concrete Revolutio has historical references in every single episode about how history has changed. Like, there are important Japanese events that happen, and they are slightly different because of the interference of the Bureau. And they're in the show, because all these superhumans are running around at once, they have these people called the Superhuman Bureau that are meant to look out for their interests and their safety. So that's where we come from. Who watches the Watchmen? You have the Superhuman Bureau watching the superheroes, but who watches the Superhuman Bureau? So everyone in the show is sort of 60s and 70s proof, or 60s, 70s copyright proof versions of characters from that time. So you want to say that if you're jumping into it as someone from another country, some of the stuff might go over your head. But I just, just think of it the way you would if you jumped in with a superhero show and all the heroes just kind of exist. Like Justice League, all the heroes are just there. You don't really question it.
Yeah, I want to add to that if I can
Okay.
quickly, because I agree with you. The show is structured in such a way where you can, if you don't know anything about what it's based on, you can still enjoy it. But there is an added level of depth if you do appreciate what's going on that I wish I kind of had, because I do feel I would have liked this show. Like, I like the show, but I feel like I would have loved it if I sort of had a Japanese history book memorized in my brain.
This is why I now get the Rolling Girls comparison.
Yeah. So
yes.
So this show is such an interesting time period to take place in because it takes place in the late 60s and early 70s, and you see it in its aesthetic and the characters it chooses. Like the main character Jiro looks like something right out of Cyborg 009, and I know that as someone who's never fucking watched Cyborg 009. So it occupies a unique history, a unique point in Japanese history, because this was a tumultuous era for Japan. It's post World War II, and they are being thrust into the modern world after hundreds of years of isolation, right? And so you have all these superheroes, these living weapons of mass destruction, and that makes things even more heated. So this is not a superhero show. This is a show about political torment. And it's not about whether one superhero can beat another supervillain. It's about a sort of realistically oppressive government. And the government even comes from obviously the government's is the bad guy, but the government comes from an understandable position because you have all these people who think that they fight for justice, but all of their sense of justice is different. So how long until they think that you aren't justice and they cause unrest and turmoil where you are, right? As a government, as a ruling power. And it's asking us, you see all these people, they're protesting in the streets, and there's this wonderful moment in this show where they note why this is happening now, why people are protesting now and they didn't do it earlier. And that's because this 60s, 70s era, this was when parents, and they note this in the show, sorry, Funk, it's not a big spoiler or anything, it's just an offhand line that I actually, it really resonated with me.
It's okay, man.
Okay, they say that parents in this era raise their children, and they raise them saying, we never, ever want to go to war again. And you contrast that with where we are, we're late teens and early 30s to late teens to early 30s people now. Their parents didn't grow up in a time of war. And so Concrete Revolutio asked us, and whether or not you even fall directly on whatever political side this is, doesn't really matter. It's just asking the question, it's food for thought, and I think that's interesting. Concrete Revolutio asked us, why don't you care now? Because the government still fucks you over now.
Well, real quick.
Yes.
That's what you said. That was a minor spoiler. That's not really a spoiler. That's factual in Japanese cultural development around that time.
Yes.
After the World War II, when they obviously got fucking rocked.
They did get fucking rocked. They got double freedomed. That
was just the cultural understanding. Just never again.
Yes.
And now that Article 9's up for revision now, I guess this is just topical.
This is even more topical. Holy shit, Concrete Revolutio. Goddamn, this show is on a roll. So I also want to point out that the xenophobia towards a certain country that dragged Japan into the modern era, kicking and screaming, actually makes sense in this show, as opposed to a dumb show that will go unnamed that we'll be talking about next season. Because it totally makes sense for the characters in this show to be distrustful of America and how America operates. Because at this point in time, America is establishing itself as the new dominant power in the world. And it's not going to let its allies' feelings get in the way of that. And you see it from their Japanese perspective until it seems like America is the bad guy. until you kind of start to see, you peel back the layers and you kind of see, well, Japan kind of want to fucks you over too, you know. And I've gushed about this for a bit, but obviously this show has its flaws, and that.
Can I bring one of those up?
No, I get to bring it up first.
I wonder if it's the same
probably
one.
the same one. Is that this show is too eager to start jumping around on the timeline, and it wouldn't be bad, really. It's not necessarily confusing, just so much that we're not invested enough in the characters to really care where they end up later yet. They should have maybe started with a future scene and then gone back for maybe 2-3 episodes and then gone back to the future. Hey, for later scenes. And I think Matt said that he watched 3 episodes of this show and
Yes, I did.
He dropped it. So
Yes.
giving credit to Matt, because I thought it was important, I went back and I watched the first 3 episodes of this show. And I thought about it. If you're going into this, because when I first started this show, I wasn't really feeling it. I was a fair bit confused. I didn't really care about the characters that much. I didn't care where they ended up. And when I watched those first 6 episodes, I was intrigued, but pretty confused. Because I felt like things felt underdeveloped. But upon this show has incredible rewatch value, because I went back and I watched those first three episodes, and I'm sorry, Matt, but they fucking rock. They're great.
That was the impression I had. I watched the first 4 episodes earlier today, and by the end of the second one, I was pretty into it.
Yes, when they say the subs say ghost. I'm not really sure how directly Obake translates to that. But the Obake character, this is when you first kind of get the glimpse of how people's sense of justice is morally gray in this show. He kind of has a breakdown when he realizes that the side he's on has never really been justice, and the side he's fighting against has also never really been justice.
This show sounds fucking awesome.
Yeah, right?
What the fuck?
And it's bombing! It's bombing, and it's gonna stay.
I want to say something about this show.
I do too. I don't want to say much because I only watched 3 episodes. But
Go ahead, Matt.
the reason why I didn't like it is because this show is a fucking mess.
Oh.
It just brings a million ideas to the table all at the same time without even really letting it settle in enough for you to really understand what is actually happening. And it feels like one of those things where you really need to know the background behind the show in order to really appreciate what it's doing. Because, like just to compare it to Watchmen, I love Watchmen. I love that comic a lot. But it has a very slow burn to it, and it's not like... And it's done for a reason. That's something with me is, if you're going to be doing something like this, I feel like you really need to give things time to develop. And in the first 3 episodes, we have magical girls who can just magically do anything, essentially. We have evil aliens. We have humans who can fuse into those evil aliens. We have kids who can turn into animals, walk through walls, and are not actually... Well, they're not actually kids because they're just perpetually young. We have an army of bug people who are just killed off instantly. We have cyborgs that can fuse together.
Okay, Matt, I'm going to stop you right there. These are...
No, keep going.
No, these are all things that are totally normal to a Japanese audience. These are all things because they're based on things. I know we occupy a different position when viewing this show.
You have to check your privilege.
Like, I just want to...
All right, I'm throwing a chair into the ring. I'm taking a heel turn on Collin here.
All right.
I kind of agree with Matt on exactly what he's talking about. And I guess the only difference is it didn't ruin the show for me. Because, like, I committed, like, Collin wants me to watch this. I'm going to sit down over these 2 days and watch every episode regardless to give this show a chance. And I did like it in the end, but I also agree with Matt, is that, and I can give you a comparison here. I don't know, Collin, if you watched Punchline, whether that is one of your secret shows or not, but this show reminds me a lot of Punchline. And what that show does is it has a lot of the similar things into it, a lot of the crazy stuff, but it's structured a lot better.
No, it doesn't. Punchline's very different.
Yes, it introduces it at a much slower rate. It doesn't throw it to you all at once like this show does. And I don't think that ruins it. But it's a lot to take in.
But the thing is,
and it doesn't help that the fact the format of the show does lead to it becoming a bit of a mess. I don't know. I can't think of any example of fiction that uses this kind of asynchronous storytelling with flash forwards to future events in a good way. I can't think of an example of no. I think any show would be better if told in chronological.
Oh my god!
Except for flashbacks. I'm okay with flashbacks. Flash forwards are what I have problems with, because in this show specifically, it ruins a lot of the twists of the show that I would have enjoyed more if you just told it in order. And it also, there's a problem that I find the stuff going on in the future far more interesting than what's happening in the present. But the stuff in the present is necessary to appreciate the stuff in the future. So you kind of have this kind of circular logic going on here of I can't enjoy this as much as I want because the stuff I want to get to is too far away. And it's hurt by the fact that it's a very episodic format. I would have preferred if it was structured more like beginning to end, one cohesive story. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but at the last episode they try to tie everything together, and I didn't think it
to
worked.
Offer a bit of a contrast to Matt and Steve. I would say yes, the first 3 episodes make everything seem kind of like a mess, since you're basically being thrown into basically this huge pile of things that are just all vying for your attention. I felt that actually made me pay more attention to the show and actually kind of worked out better when I actually got a grasp of things. Because if the show was paced more slowly, I don't think I would have actually been all that I wouldn't have really tried to invest myself much into any one thing in the show. Whereas the way the show is paced, I felt like it basically just forced me to actually pay very close attention to what was going on. And through that, I felt like I actually gained a greater understanding of the events and the characters than I would have had the show been paced any differently or portrayed in a different fashion.
I think the show demands a lot from its audience. Something like Indiana Jones is a great fucking movie. No one here is going to debate that Indiana Jones is fucking great. Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy is also a fucking great movie, but Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy probably demands a bit more of your time. And whether or not one is better than the other is up for debate, because I really like both, and I probably wouldn't be able to tell you which one I'd like more, because they're very different. But just because...
Then why are you comparing? I don't think you should compare things that are different.
I'm just saying that just because Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, or in this case, Concrete Revolutio, the superhuman phantasmagoria, demands more of my time and perhaps is much, much better upon a rewatch, does not decrease the quality at all for me. In fact, it increases it. Because I fucking love that experimental, ambitious shit.
I don't have a problem with the show having so much depth that there's more that to get on subsequent rewatches. I think that's a good thing. But it's a problem when there's a bit too much where you can't get enough enjoyment the first time.
I don't think that's the case, though. All the things that you guys were talking about, all these elements that sounded like magical girls, bug armies, etc., they're very easy to process because you don't need to have a deep understanding of them to get what's going on in the plot of the show.
Yeah, just that there are a bunch of fucking different types of super powered people. And that's actually, if you guys, that's actually a part of the bill where they... I'm sorry, I don't want to spoil this for Funk, but it is an important plot point on how they define what is superhuman. And that becomes a huge plot point, which I believe, we don't quite know yet, the bill probably comes back and gets passed in the future, and which will restrict the rights of superhumans greatly, which is why we have Jiro's Concrete Revolutio in the future, bringing to life his superhuman phantasmagoria.
I guess my point is more that I agree. I think a lot of the surface elements of the show are really good. I just wish it had been structured better. and I probably would have like I don't know if I enjoyed it the same level as you did,
Yeah.
Collin, but I probably would have come.
Yeah, I mean,
it's just my entire issue comes down to the way.
Well, Steve, I'm gonna be straight with you right now. Giving this show a 6 out of 10 is a crime, and Matt, giving this show a 5 out of 10 after 3 episodes is a fucking travesty.
Well,
So,
six doesn't mean it's
no,
bad.
I don't. I know it doesn't mean it's bad, but
the problem
you
is like,
affect
and
people's
to be honest,
interest
I
in
don't.
this show. Like
The thing is, Collin, I don't have a legitimate criticism for this. I just was never as like I do feel the show is watched like kind of marathoning it than week to week, but which is what I did. But I was never even going through it like that. I just never felt all that invested in what was going on.
Yeah.
And I can't really fully explain why. It's not a problem of the show. It's just there was nothing here that had a hook for me. And I just, I can't blame the show for that. It just didn't click with me the same way it did for you. Even discounting my issues with the formatting, I gave it a 6 because I just thought it was okay. And that's kind of the score I give to anime that
damn
I'm
it,
okay.
man, damn it.
I will.
You
Okay.
break my heart,
And
Matt breaks my dick when he writes it.
For
Did anyone here watch Gochuumon Crowds? Actually, because like
This is not
no,
relevant.
it is kind of relevant because like I've never seen this show, but the way Collin was describing it, it reminds me kind of a little bit of Insight, which I just finished not too long ago, and because Insight is also like a superhero show that has this bit of a it's more like a criticism of like a mob mentality and shit like that. So it uses that medium to tell a story about the digital age and disillusionment with the current way that things are done in comparison to like the old school way that things are done. So it's kind of interesting to look at it through that regard. I'm definitely interested in watching it now. Yeah. I know a lot of people are complaining about the way the episodes are framed with the flash forwards and shit like that. But like, is there a way where you'd be able to watch it in like a straight up chronological order?
Not
Or
unless
should you
somebody
just-
edited
Not
it for
if-
you.
Yeah, right.
It's also not done. There's still like another.
Oh wait,
13
Yes.
episodes
it's a
to come.
2-course series?
It's a split course series, so it's coming back in April.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, which makes me pretty fucking hype. Although it's probably
It's also being written by the guy who wrote.
I'm
Kill
very,
Bill, so-
I heard about that.
so still cautiously optimistic because whoever's directing this FMA Shirobako guy who didn't actually direct Shirobako, but the character was based on him. He is a fucking genius. He Bones also. I'm pretty sure did Bones also do Space Dandy?
Maybe.
Because if they did, this is going to be the second extremely experimental show.
Yes, they
within
did.
within a short time period, that totally bombed and failed in Japan because it was
Did
too
Space Dandy
different for
bomb?
them.
It's so popular over here.
and then
think
it fails in Japan because it doesn't click with them, and then it fails in America because America doesn't understand what keeps the industry going. They just think if they watch the show, then it's a success.
Right, but like it's very. I know a lot of people I know over here who watch anime really liked Space Dandy.
Yes.
Personally, it wasn't my cup of tea because I thought that the humor was a little not to my tastes. Like I mean, I liked what they were going for, but it's not my. It's mostly visual humor, which is not really my kind of thing. But you know, I never would have guessed that.
I would love to talk about Space Dandy with you right now, but like we.
Yeah,
we
right.
gotta
We
move on.
gotta hurry it up.
I just want to say, for what it's worth, I did actually remove my score for both this and for Heavy Object because
Well, you bullied
Can-
him.
can we
Colin.
just-
But see, he was in the wrong, so I don't feel bad about it.
Rating
I just felt like I should since I dropped it and didn't see the whole show. I did the same for Heavy Object, but
rating anything before you watch the entirety of it is a crime against humanity.
Bullshit.
Yeah,
I
talk to
just
Steve
wanna
about
say-
that.
I rate literally everything. The only things on my list that are not rated, there's like a
You're
couple
an
stuff on my
overrater.
on-hold list. It's better than being an
Tuscan
underrater. Colin, anyone else?
Matt
Do
was
you guys
saying
want to add
something.
anything?
I just want to say, like, my main issues of the show was kind of along with Steve. I just didn't feel invested in any of the characters. I didn't really find any of them all that interesting. and I just didn't like how the writing to me just felt kind of disorganized. Not like I didn't really know what
It's
they
not
were going
linear.
for. And
I
I mean,
feel-
I don't care. I don't. It's not that it was a non-linear narrative. I've read and watched things that had non-linear narratives, and it's fine. I just felt like this was a bit too messy for me. I mean, I just didn't really like it much. But
Yeah, and Colin, I don't want you to think I hate.
No,
the
no,
show,
I don't think you do
like-
because I actually enjoyed talking about it with you. I just want to say that I adore this show and I love the character of Jiro in particular. Probably one of my favorite characters of the year. Not quite sure if he'll win the coveted Shellblade Award of Best Character of the Year next podcast. You'll get.
Since when did you
I
sponsor
guess
that award?
you'll have to tune in and see.
That's a nice tease. The important thing to take away from the discussion is that Colin and Matt are still friends.
For now.
Kenny and Matt, I don't know.
They're friends.
Kenny,
What?
you still
Yep.
awake? Okay, you're on
I
deck.
am.
Let's take us through Seraph.
Okay,
of the,
all right. I got it.
season
I'm gonna
2.
take a pee break, so don't ask me anything until I say words.
Okay, we'll wait to talk about the King of Salt.
Are we
Kenny.
just gonna wait?
No.
Oh,
No, you just go ahead and talk about like how you felt about the second season and maybe what it did different from the first season.
Well, give an
there's
introduction
lots.
to it too.
I'm just gonna stop talking.
No, give an introduction to it, Kenny.
That's not how a podcast works.
Because Kenny, I and I'm sure some other people watched the first season but have not watched the second season. So why don't you give us a rundown of it?
Okay, the second season, basically, I thought it was better. Honestly, I don't know how you felt, Steve. I mean, the vampires are like gonna invade and just destroy the humans, and then the humans have a counterattack with I don't know how you'd put it. I guess they're playing with God or some shit.
Yeah, you see the glimpses of that at the end of the
Yeah.
first season. And Funk, this season's kind of the payoff to that. This is it essentially is the build up and kind of resolution to the big human vampire conflict that we never really got to in the
But then
first
there's a
season.
lot of interaction with they're conspiring with the vampires, I guess Cruel Tepes and what the hell is that other guy's name?
Gurren?
Gurren and the vampire
Jared?
Freed, the guy with the long ponytail.
Farid.
Farid, yeah. A lot of shit just because I just watched the last episode today and it was just what the fuck?
It's a really nothing ending. That was the most disappointing part of this season. The first few episodes are just recapping what happened and then also setting up. There's a lot of conspiring and planning
Can I
going
say that the first episode of this show, of this second season, I guess, second tour, whatever, has the most awkward exposition dump. Oh my god. You had 12 previous episodes to talk about this shit. And you even mentioned the character of Shinoa's sister already before. And this is the worst kind of exposition dump, where it's two characters talking about things they both already know. And it's yes, you
I
mean,
guess that would be-
you mean my sister who died, who's inside your sword. Who's trying to control your pain?
Wait, was it revealed that Miharu, Gurren's sword, basically is his girlfriend? Basically,
Yes, he does
Yeah.
indeed.
was that mentioned in the first season? I can't remember.
I don't remember that, so maybe it wasn't. But I have no idea.
Maybe?
God, even
I don't
don't.
remember that. When that was revealed.
If they did, they touched on it very briefly. And even in this season, I don't even think they fully went into it as much as they probably should have. Because I had two problems with this season. One is that I'd never really understood, even after 24 episodes, what the fuck Gurren was trying to accomplish. And the second was that the show kind of the thing I really loved about the first season was just the development of Yu's character, and I felt like that hit a plateau.
Oh,
in
it
the
definitely
season.
did. Like,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
he was the
it's like-
same fucking person.
Yeah, because it's like they got him to the
It didn't
point
just
where okay,
plateau. A lot of the plot, these weird plot contrivances where it's moved forward by you being fucking retarded.
Yes.
yes,
odd.
and Funk will be glad to hear this. Like, so he gets to the point, and this is the biggest problem I had all season, is that he's so obsessed with trying to save his family, which is admirable. But you're also in war. You have to understand that sometimes people die and sacrifices need to be made, and he keeps making the wrong decision every time, even though all his teammates are level-headed and understand the situation a lot
He's
better
a fucking
than him.
dumbass. Is
So-
just what he is. Like, it's just
Yes, and it's dumb, and it builds up to the point where like he overdoses on the demon pills.
not only that, but in the last
God
fucking
damn it.
episode, he stabs himself to become a fucking.
Well, apparently Yu's immortal. I think that's the case.
You think so?
I don't know if the show
Well, they
conveys
do
that.
say he was like experimented on, so he's like basically what, an angel
Yeah.
or
Yes.
partially an angel.
And I made this point to Collin. I feel like I would appreciate this show a lot better if I understood
Okay,
the
dude,
Bible.
have you-
Because there are a lot of
Do you know the story of Lot in the Bible?
no.
Okay, well,
Here we
pillars of, okay, I'm not gonna, pillars of salt. His wife turns into a pillar of salt when she looks back at the horror of the city being destroyed.
Yeah, Professor Brothers covered this. Come on.
I don't know what that is, but yeah.
So out there, somebody does, and they're chuckling to themselves right now. So shine on, you crazy diamond. I appreciate you.
So there you go. Salt powers are indeed biblical.
So
Yeah, I saw you gave it like a 5.
So-
Yes,
Collin.
I thought
guess you
because
were
I thought the
impressed.
first part was very strong. I very much enjoyed the blossoming romance between Shinoa and you. Not you, Steve. Shinoa will never love you.
she's too smug for you.
I think
I
it's
would-
done
I would
very
never
well because their dialogue and their actions and what happens in the story informs on their romance growing and how they like how each scene to scene you see them start to change how they interact with one another, and it's handled wonderfully. But god fucking damn, the Fujoshi shit mars that down so much for me.
Oh,
And no,
come on.
you have to hear me out here. You have to hear me out here because this shouldn't bother me. This really wouldn't bother me at all if it wasn't for the Yu and Shinoa romance that they're doing, because this they play up the Fujoshi shit more in the show than they do in the source material, which not only betrays the author's original intent, it also bogs down the actual romance between Shinoa and Yu by pandering way too much to Mika.
I agree with you on the first point. I don't know about the second. I mean, that stuff is clearly for
Yes,
that
I know
audience,
it's for that.
but I don't think it ruins anything in the story. You may be
It
reading
takes
too much.
it takes
into
away
it.
from me.
I guess I can understand.
I think, well, personally, with my biggest issue with the show, like again, like falls under the whole "you as a fucking dumbass" issue. Like the entire midsection of the show just kind of falls short for me because it's just you being a dumbass, like trying to like break down a brick wall.
Not you,
For-
but like you.
Well, also you, but anyway.
Well, you can call me Yuriko. That make it more clear, you know.
This is triggering me.
Yeah.
I for the past like 5 months, I knew somebody named you, and we kept making the same joke. Now it's spread.
Did it bother you?
Oh my
God!
It
god!
bothered both of us.
Keep making puns, London.
Maybe you should just calm down for a second, and let me talk about you. So,
Okay.
By the end of this discussion, someone's going to be the ghost.
You was the salt. You was the salt of the earth.
Don't talk like a black guy, Kenny.
I am black, and I take offense to that.
Go ahead.
But yeah, like I mean, the entire issue, like the entire whole rescue Gurren arc, just doesn't really work because first off, they have a fucking mission. Like yes, they all want to rescue him, but the thing is, like, they fail once, it doesn't, like, they try again, it doesn't work. They keep doing the same shit for like 3 episodes, and it still doesn't work. And it's like, I just stopped giving a shit at a certain point because like they're not going to rescue him. So it's like, why do you keep like pushing this on when they could just move on to the next plot point and be in the same exact position?
Well,
it's
Gurren
frustrating.
claims he has a plan, but was that plan for him to be like possessed by by his demon?
No, I believe he went a little off rails there. I don't think he planned for that one.
I don't know.
I guess. I mean, there's
No one
yeah, because they
knows.
went anime. They kind of went anime original at the end. I'm not sure if the manga is going to catch up to it because there's only 39 chapters out of this manga, so they kind of jumped the gun on adapting this so quickly. There really was not a lot of material for this, especially since like this is a very traditional shonen in comparison to what else we've been watching or whatever you guys have probably been watching throughout the years. You know, where the bad guys, if you're higher up on the bad guy branch, or you are physically more powerful than the other bad guys in this organization. That's such classic shonen, and it makes me giggle every time. Like if you're a general, you're fucking Duke, you know? Or if you're a noble, that's wonderful. Like I love that. But it's something that usually has a much longer runtime than something like this.
Yeah.
And they probably should have given the manga a bit more time to breathe, but apparently I'm assuming it was quite a success and they just wanted to capitalize on it right now.
Well, I mean, the second cour was announced right away. It was a split cour show, so they were clearly like, it is successful in Japan. So I expect it will come back at some point. But like we're years away from having enough material.
Yeah, it should. It left it like on a major cliffhanger though.
It left on like a nothing ending. It was like the most nothing ending I've seen.
What do you mean by nothing ending though?
It had no resolution.
Because like it's like set up this big thing and there's like no one really dies. And then
no one really dies. They killed off an entire squad that was like a supporting cast.
No one of importance died in the show.
Give a shit by any of those people.
Steve, that entire like who the fuck squad was that? I can't fucking remember.
Exactly.
Narumi. No, it was Narumi's squad, but we got to know none of them. none of the main.
But it was just like all
died.
of a sudden, just like you're gone.
It's just like one of my Harry Potters.
But they were meaningless characters, so it didn't.
Well, I thought like when they're in like the opening theme, like they're like introduced and stuff like that.
There are a lot of people in the opening.
I mean,
I get what you mean, Kenny. It's just like they're just no one of real importance died.
and I think what makes that
And it felt like it was building up to some kind of climactic.
Well,
finish,
I expected
it just
them to like kind of. I expected more development, and then to like kind of form their own like little like group and like just like take shit on and stuff like that. But
yeah,
I think what kind of makes that worse is because like they basically spend the entire like introductory episode of those characters just like hammering home, oh, not all of us might make it back, and it's like, okay, so
and then they all make it back.
it's like, okay, now I know like all these added characters are probably going to die except for maybe one or two of them.
Yeah, they're added just to die. Like no one of importance bites the dust in the show, and I felt like it was maybe building up to like some kind of anime only ending, but they just left it way too open.
they did.
Especially for something that we're probably going to be waiting for years to
What
get
really
back
pissed
to.
me off
Yeah.
is like I fucking hated like what was Crawley? Yeah, Crowley, the vampire. Cruel Tempest like supposedly killed him, but he came back to life because he couldn't.
Yeah, I wanted one of those vampires to
like,
get their comeuppance, and no one
was
did.
Bullshit.
The only one who got fucked was
There was
Cruel
no-
Tempest, and she was the
nothing
best
She was
really-
one.
awesome.
Nothing had a conclusion in this.
No.
No,
To be
Like
For
continued.
years.
that episode pissed me off like more ways than none. It was just like, God.
I still enjoyed it overall. It just did not stick the landing.
No, it didn't.
So. That's enough vampires. Funk.
What?
Why don't you tell about rabbits and the girls who like them?
Yes.
No, well, okay. Kenny might hate me, but so season 2 is the Order of Rabbit was terrible.
Great.
It
What?
was terrible. So
Here we
the
go.
the premise of the show, again, it's a season 2. It's
Funk.
there's a What?
Japan has warped your mind. You don't know what you're talking about.
So there's this comfy small town in Japan, but it's just fictional town, and there's a comfy cafe that's rabbit themed, and it's just a slice of life show following the people who work in that cafe and some of their friends who work in other cafes. That K. And that's it. It's a very simple premise. I thoroughly enjoyed the first season. It was very comfy. But as is the case for shows like this, it's very easy for them to get very stale and stagnant and run out of steam somewhere through the second season, which is why I was amazed that didn't happen with Yuru Yuri. But I don't know if this was always present. In this season, I noticed a lot more fan service. And
It was always there.
Okay, but the thing is, now that they've upped the presence of the middle school girls, Meg and I forget the other one's name, Blue and Red. Now that they up their presence, it's just it's more off-putting, to say the least. Especially, I don't know, just certain shots during like the ending, not just the theme, but the whole animation. And even without the fan service complaint, it was just a much more boring show. I didn't find the character of the main character's sister engaging.
Moko?
Yeah. Loco?
Moko.
Coco. Or Moko.
Coco's
No,
the main
it's
character.
It's Mocha.
Mocha is her sister.
Hot
yeah,
shot.
Mocha I did not find to be an engaging character, nor just an entertaining one, because she's
But her-
basically just Coco 2.0. Or Cocoa, rather, right? Cocoa?
But
Yeah,
you,
Coco.
you didn't find her interaction with Riza funny?
No. The show did nothing new apart from the first season. Like, it just introduced characters that felt like they had already been there. It didn't add anything. And of course, like, the style, the pacing, and the humor were all identical, because it's not going to be too different. But it just led to a show that was very boring. And by the third episode, I was just like, man, I want this to be over. But I finished it. I watched the whole thing. But I was more bored than comfy, which is an egregious offense.
Oh no.
Now, personally, I agree with Funkin that it is very, very much the same show as the first season, down to like the style, the humor, and such. And I have to like agree that like if you're not into that sort of thing, like again, like you will probably hate the show. But I personally did find it like entertaining for the second time, even in spite of the I guess increased appearances of the middle school girls, which I feel like they have probably the worst chemistry with like the entire rest of the cast, even including like Chino, like who's also a middle schooler. And it's just like every scene with them just kind of drains any sort of fun or levity out of the scene, just because they just have no actual personality.
And they were in every episode.
Yeah.
Especially the red one. Her actress is terrible. That was one of the worst performances I can recall in a long time. It was bad. Yeah. One point I wanted to bring up was the opening theme song was written to be highly derivative of the first season's opening, and it's very easy to tell that, but it falls so flat on its face. It sounds terrible. And it's the first time I heard it, I was, first of all, we were talking about this with certain music the other day, and that it's hard to distinguish like a clear melody, which just makes it very wall of sound when you listen to it. But once you finally start parsing it out and putting it together, you can just tell that it's taking little bits and hooks from the first season's song and using them in the completely wrong ways. It was so offensive to me that I felt the need to point it out and talk about it right now. It was so bad.
I know we talked about this before, Funk, but like time to time, I was like, I'll just listen to it, just like watching the episode, and like it kind of grew on me actually.
Really?
Yeah. So I mean, it's nowhere near as good as like the first opening, but I mean, I enjoy it. So.
Well, that's fair. Fair enough. I just didn't. The ending theme sounded much more like a real song, which I greatly appreciated and I quite liked.
Mm-hmm.
I think actually the show's opening and ending are highly indicative of two different kinds of writing for anime, because you have like the Denpa style, just little girls shouting off key to a very active accompanying beat that just moves all over the place, and then something that's more like a traditional song with more of a structure to it, more of a distinct melody that's sung accurately, and yeah, two different ends of the spectrum here. One being much better than the other on average.
Yeah.
So, no one's
No.
happy.
Absolutely
I mean-
dank.
Me and Kenny enjoyed it, but
So no one's happy.
No, we're good. Just
Okay, but I'm like, if there was a third season, would you guys
Yes.
watch it?
I
Or
Would probably check it out, but I'd be much more open to dropping it than I was
Steve,
with this.
Steve, what's our time crunch right now?
we're coming up on 3
Shit,
hours
nigga.
in
Okay,
about
let's.
20 minutes.
Hey, that's our word.
Hey, we got time.
Alright,
Don't
okay.
worry,
no,
we're moving.
we don't got time.
Yeah, we
got
do,
time.
Kenny.
Don't
Hang
Got
in
time
there.
to do.
Hang in there. I promise you, it will be worth it. So the next anime up is Heavy Object.
Oh boy.
And
God.
since no one wanted to talk about this, it has fallen upon
Oh,
me.
I didn't even
to
know you.
No,
Yeah,
handle
you
the
didn't
show.
have Steve. You didn't have heavy object listed in what we're talking about.
Because I put it out there. Does anyone want
it's
to take
not,
it? And
it's
no one
not
took
just
it.
you, it's me and you, because I'm still watching it.
I'm still watching it too.
Oh, you fools.
No one cares what you think, Yule.
Is that the one where like the guy plays the flute
Shut
and
up.
the girl
Yes.
has an orgasm?
We'll get there. It's don't jump ahead. So okay, so Heavy Object. The show is about a like near future world where all warfare is fought with these giant technodrome-esque machines called heavy objects. And they're so powerful that they can withstand a nuclear blast, and they've essentially wiped out all conventional warfare. And soldiers are essentially reduced to maintenance on these objects. So that's sort of the basic premise of what the world is. But then you jump into the actual story, and I don't think I've ever seen a show like undermine its own plot as quickly as this one does. Because the story is just about these two random soldiers who go around destroying these undestroyable objects, which previously could only be destroyed by other objects, but now they're like almost rendered meaningless as these two bumbling idiots ass pull their way in every arc to destroying the object.
They make
of
the
week.
point in being, when the first time it happens, they're like, oh man, that was a fluke, you guys got so lucky, and then they just keep doing it over and over and over.
Yeah, and that's kind of what like the biggest issue of the show is like it's very formulaic.
Why
and
don't they
repetitive.
put these two fellas who know how to dismantle objects in some sort of administrative position where they can teach other people how to dismantle objects, so you don't have to risk the two lives of the people who are the only ones who can dismantle objects every single time?
Well, the idea is that they want to get those two guys killed because they want to keep the economic status quo.
Oh my god!
Yeah, but even
There's
after
conspiracy
even after they
revealed?
oust even after they oust these conspiracy guys, they still send them to the front lines. So it's stupid. And a big issue I have with the show is I found it hard to get invested in what's going on because the universe does not do a very good job of explaining itself. It does a very stupid sci-fi thing I hate, where it starts off with some bullshit explanation about how the UN dissolves and all the countries in the world kind of splinter into these smaller microstates for no reason, which would never make sense. And there's no attempt to like correlate these fictional nations to where they are in the real world. So I don't really know the stakes. We only really know that the good guys are the good guys because they tell us they're the good
aren't
guys.
the good guys, aren't they
And-
Alaskan?
No,
Oh,
they're not.
okay.
They were just stationed there.
They're
Oh.
from they're from the legitimate kingdom, which is a meaningless
Okay,
name.
but like I'm sure,
And it's full of like other
I'm-
meaningless.
I'm
like,
sure
like
the
the Techno
supplemental
Union
ma-
and the Trade Federation, and I have no
I'm-
idea who
I'm-
these guys are
I'm
supposed to
sure
represent.
the supplemental material goes into more detail.
Yes, the novels probably explain this very well, but the anime does not. And as a result, you don't really have a context for this conflict. All we really know is that every other country in the world is at war with every other country, and they all have these objects, and it's a perpetual state of war, and we're never told what the war is. It's just people fighting with objects for no reason.
Which sounds hilarious
So-
when you don't know what an object is.
And then the problem is the episodes don't show the objects fighting the objects, which the one time they do that was actually kind of interesting when you see like the dynamics of what two objects fighting is like. But then, like, it just reverts back to, like, these idiots just undermining the plot.
Wait,
so
do objects ever fight after episode 2?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I was about to say.
yeah,
Like,
but the
they're
thing
like
is,
they're,
like,
they're always fighting.
but they're not. It's not really shown. It's like these two idiots do something to mess up an object, and then the good object like blows a hole in it at the very end. Like when they were in the Mediterranean and having that fight on the water, like that was really the only time in the show so far that you see two objects having a prolonged conflict. Every other time, it's just like long distance fighting. It's as, and I say this as someone who's not dropped the show yet. I don't know why I keep at it. It's gotten better. Like it started off very rough, and it's gotten to the point where I feel it's watchable. But I also probably could not explain to you like anything good about this show. I just kind of consume it, even though it's very, very dumb.
Glowing recommendation.
Like I will agree
Well,
with Steve. Like,
it's just like I said to you, Steve. Like I was so close to dropping it, but
This show is on like a perpetual state of drama.
yeah,
and
pretty much.
And it's the reason why this is going to end up on my most disappointing list. Spoilers. The biggest reason is it's the light novels are written by the guy who wrote the index novels, which are really good.
and who also wrote the Railgun manga.
Yes, which is really good. So when you have an author of that pedigree, you kind of hope that this one will live up to that, and it doesn't come anywhere near close. It's super disappointing. I expected so much more out of this show.
The anime, I'm not sure if like the source material is as dumb, or if not, but like it's really dumb
Probably
with
is.
like really simple characters, but I keep enjoying it for some reason or another that I can't explain.
Yeah. Well, let's hear from the people who dropped it.
Okay. Well, I distinctly remember. I think I was loading up episode 4 or 5. Might have been 6. Let me actually quick check how much I watched. But I loaded up an episode and I started watching it. And then just in the middle of it, I just kind of clicked into Facebook and started reading that and just kind of listening to it. And of course, like I don't speak Japanese, so at the point where I was just content to have it on in the background, have no idea what was going on, that's when I decided to drop it because I'm like, wait, I just clearly hate this. By the way, I somehow watched 8 episodes.
You got farther than me.
Jeez, I'm shocked that I got that far.
Let's I'm sure you guys are agreeing with this. I think the show's biggest crime is that it has the like most lamest sense of humor I've ever seen of an anime. Just like I don't have a problem with fan service, but like the attempts to force it in here in like the most contrived, stupid situations, and like they're still doing it. By the way, even after you guys dropped it.
Okay, so
it's not stopping.
I don't know if this is something that didn't translate well, but one joke that can't put enough quotes around that they kept making was, and I forget exactly how it went, but it was like they called the battlefield itself an asshole. Or something to that degree.
What?
I don't even think that was a joke.
But you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, it just was. I don't know if that's just a translation thing, but that was very perplexing.
What? Okay.
Anyway, Matt, I interrupted you.
Oh, I was just gonna say the moment, like to kind of tie into the fan service thing. The moment I dropped this was in episode 2. So they're running away from this giant robot that's trying to kill them, and it's a very tense, or at least what I would think should be a very tense moment as they're running for their lives. They hide into a cave and fall down into this cave, and the one male lead falls just so conveniently on the female's. No, she falls so conveniently on him in such a way that her breasts just happen to perfectly land into his palms, and he just kind of, and it's like a fucking Adam Sandler movie where he's just like,
my
my
really
god,
are new to
boobies!"
anime.
Welcome
And
to
then-
anime. Seriously.
Like you didn't even get to the
Flute.
fucking.
Yeah.
Oh, I did not. Yeah.
He haven't missed the flute.
Funk, can you describe that scene with
no, I
Shellblade
got
to
it.
someone?
So
Flute suit riot.
the people who pilot the objects, they have to wear these special suits that regulate numerous functions of their body to withstand the pressure of whatever they need to operate the heavy objects because they're so heavy. So they have to calibrate these suits. And I guess the way they do this is they resonate with sound waves. So to calibrate them, the pilot who wears the suit goes into this room that has special acoustics, I can only assume, because it's such a weird-looking room, picks up a flute and then plays a specific piece of music, which then hits the right frequencies, resonates with their suit, gets everything in order. So, that happens. Then enter the male lead, who is very ignorant to all this. So he's just like, oh, cool, a flute. So he picks it up and starts playing off-key, flat notes, just terrible. And of course, the way this manifests itself, or each of those sound waves, strikes such a chord with the suit that it stimulates the female wearing it sexually. And it's just incredibly awkward and uncalled for and off-putting. Like,
And not even really explained why.
yes. I want to point out a lot of these things I just assumed, like how that calibrates the suit, the room, special acoustics. A lot of these things I just assumed, just to give it a bit more
Yeah,
credit.
it's like, I bet in the novel they give you the technical explanation of how that works, but in the anime it's just this dumb
Yes, that
scene.
is not explained or referenced. I can only assume referenced since. And-
No. They did have a pole dancing.
Oh, really?
So no.
Yes,
I
they
saw
did.
that.
It's
I saw a
fantastic.
clip of that.
Terrible.
Ugh. I mean, I got out what I wanted to get out.
You're still watching it, even.
I am. Well, I mean, I can think of one positive thing about this
Go
show,
on.
and that's Major Capistrano's heavy object.
The fun Luckycast fact: Steve is actually referring to breasts.
Yes. I think
You're going a bit too behind the
I
scenes
think
there.
Steve and I agree. Best girl. Yes.
Yeah, only girl.
You know,
Anything else, guys?
About heavy
Not
objects?
weigh in.
Hell
Yeah.
no.
I'd rather not weigh in on heavy
Oh,
objects.
It does.
Oh.
It does have a great opening.
Eh.
Eh,
I
I'm
love the
on it.
opening.
I didn't really like it.
Are you still watching the show, Collin?
No.
Oh, when did you drop it?
7.
Okay. Hey, I did beat you. Take that.
Yeah.
Good guys win.
It's almost like it's become a contest of who can drop it last.
I mean,
That's what it sort of did become, yeah.
that's what drove Kenny and I through the Flag anime. And
Oh God, no.
And look where that
It
got
we're
got
you.
still
Yeah.
talking about it.
It got you a good story on the podcast that you keep referencing.
Well, long-time
Uh,
listeners will appreciate this.
Yes.
Yes.
Colin, do you know what it's time for?
It's time for you guys to want to kill yourselves because this is another one I made a lot of notes for. But I'll keep this as brief as possible.
It's time for Taimadou. Take it away, Colin.
Taimadou, which is not at all how it is pronounced. The Anti-Magic Academy. Now, this
No, say the full
I
title.
don't remember the 35th.
Anti-Magic
The
Academy
35th Test
35th
Platoon,
Test
yeah.
Platoon.
Splatoon?
Okay, so, fuck off.
I mean,
I
no,
wish this
no.
was a
We need to
Splatoon
get
anime.
through this podcast. Everybody, shut up. Okay. So this show is about an academy that trains students to go on missions and apprehend people who deal with the occult, and occult and magic and shit. Thank you for sneeze coughing through my explanation.
This is a sneeze. Thank you very much.
And that's the briefest summary I can give. This show is kind of a battle harem. Doesn't have a tournament arc or anything like that going on in it, but there is a harem present, and there is a main guy. So there you go. And there is fighting. Unfortunately, this show was done by Silver Link, who took on 2 other shows this season, and you can see where the money went. It went to Cavalry.
They also hired a retarded monkey.
They also hired a man who should never work again to direct this show. Because I'll tell you guys right now, I started reading the light novels for this show because this show's material interested me a lot. It felt like there was a lot more to it than it was leading on. And so I wanted to look into the light novels, and lo and behold, it explained a lot more about the world. The world is much more interesting than what the anime presents it as.
As opposed to explaining.
Yes.
The show has the pacing of a highlight reel.
Yes, it does. It absolutely does have the pacing of a highlight reel.
and it goes through a lot of stuff very quickly. You didn't even if you only have 12 episodes, you could have done it so much better than this, especially since you dedicated one episode to the beach episode out of these 12. You fucking hack. You had 22 extra minutes. Holy shit.
What I like is how the beach episode is also the best paced episode of the series.
That is even worse because this show shouldn't be bad. It has very strong characterization. Stronger than Cavalry, stronger than Asterisk. I like every single girl in this show. I like the main character a lot. Our lead, he's great because he's more than just a nice guy. He has kind of this old school nobility to him that kind of ties back to
it's laid on a bit.
Kind of
thick,
ties
though.
back to like his samurai roots, but he also kind of has an ill temper, and he's kind of full of himself and his swordsmanship skills, and he's made fun of for being a sword fag, whereas everyone else uses guns now. And his sword would basically be useless had it not been for the fact that he gets a major magical power upgrade that allows him to use his sword effectively against demons and magic shit.
Well, they are a group that does not work well together.
Yes, I would see it starts out pretty funny because you see that how horribly they fuck up their first mission, and you see how you see that this guy has like superhuman swordsmanship abilities, but then he realizes in the middle of the mission, oh shit, even if you're superhuman in your swordsmanship abilities, swords still get fucked over by guns. Swords suck. Then you have the female lead, Uka. Is that how I say her name? Oka or Uka? Oka.
I just call it Otori.
Uka from fucking Crash Bandicoot.
Otori. I thought originally I wasn't really sold on her, but I actually grew to like her quite a bit, and I really like her as the lead, and I like her as the main love interest too. And speaking of love interest in general, yes, he has a harem, but there is a very strong friendship dynamic that I enjoyed with all of them, because all of them feel like they're his friends first before they're his love interests.
You know what I liked? Just to add on to that a bit, the two most side characters in this show, Usagi and Tsugunami.
Of course, Steve's going to say Usagi because.
Shut up and let me finish. I thought they would get zero development in the show. I thought they would always just be side characters. I felt they got more development than the two main girls, which was nice.
It's not
to
that
see.
they had really. They definitely they kind of skim over. They skim over a lot of Oka, and they skim over everything for Lapis, who feels like a non-entity in this show. And his
well, yeah, to the point where I don't even understand why they had her, other than just another.
Yeah, Takeru is his relationship with Lapis is very important in the light novel, and the ending of this show, where they have Lapis speak to him before he gets to take another power up and say that he's sacrificing his humanity for it. Like, this is a really, really important part in the light novel, and he's just over it by the time the fight is over. He's got his humanity back, no problem, and there's no questions asked. The anime ending was also original. They changed some stuff about it. The ending especially, like the very end, where in the light novel it's like, and the adventure continues. What will happen next? Where Mari and Takeru are whisked away to the Magic Academy. Yes, not the Anti-Magic Academy. So one of the biggest blunders in this show, how they handled a certain character, was Kyoya. Kyoya, the rival character.
Oh, is he the Scar guy? Okay.
Kyoya gets several appearances in the light novel before he gets wrecked by Haunted, and then he gets several mentions before he shows up again, all PTSD ridden in Psycho. And also their fight is great, but it sucks in the show because the art direction for the fights is terrible as well, because the armor is done in CGI, and the CGI is incredibly stiff. Not to mention that Otori, whatever, gets her own witch hunter mode, and it's partially CGI, and it looks so awkward and so stiff and just ugly. and terrible. And that just really sucks. And that's really sad that a character as good and entertaining as Kyoya was skimmed over. Because he's a bit of a meme character with his hunting of the infidels. And it makes him quite a bit of fun. With the threads for this show, the discussion for it was probably the most fun about the show. And talking about how much the show adaptation sucked.
I can imagine. I do want to interject with something I thought really sucked that I don't think you touched on, is that this show has a fucking awful villain. To the point where I don't even know
Haunted.
his name.
His name is
cannot
Haunted.
remember
And
his name.
Haunted is okay, so you say he's awful, but something
here's the thing.
Really like about Haunted. He feels like something that Mikey would write if he wrote an anime. He is the edgiest motherfucker alive, and all you want to see is like you want to see Haunted just die in the most gruesome way. He's such.
I didn't even feel that because they do nothing with him. Like his character does the same thing every time.
He shows up and he like just fucking fucks shit up and like
he shows up, he incites chaos, and then
but I like that.
Overpowered. And
but like
such a cunt. He's
like the show needed a compelling villain, and like they did nothing.
I mean, like again, skimmed over. Maybe it's just because I've read the light novels now, so I have a bit of a different view. But yeah, the Haunted is probably underutilized, and they add him uselessly to the finale because he's not in the finale in the in that part of the light novel. They just added him in because. I don't even know why, because him being there didn't add anything. And in fact, it takes away from the previous scene with Kyoya and Takaru fighting because the actual object of Kyoya's vengeance shows up 2 seconds after Kyoya leaves. But there is something that Haunted does add, and what kind of made the show appeal to me initially is that the word of the day for the show is suffering. And all of the characters in this show have so much baggage. Oh my god, all the characters in this show have their shit fucked up beyond repair. They're all just mode. And that's probably one of the biggest draws for it for me, because you wouldn't expect something like a battle harem show to be as dark as this. I'm using the word edgy, but I'm actually using it in a positive light. It has quite a bit of edge, and it makes it feel pretty fresh for me. I just wish that the adaptation wasn't so abysmal, because I really like all the characters, because the characterization is strong. They all get a great amount of screen time, even when they're not the focus. They never feel left out or underused. And I like seeing all their interaction. I like seeing them kind of grow as a family, except for Lapis, who's completely skimmed over. That poor character. I think that a lot of the humor is on point. There's a really funny moment in... I know I shit on the beach episode earlier, but there's a pretty funny moment in it where all the girls are in their swimsuits, and Takaru is just turned around looking at Lapis, and he says, Lapis, I'm really glad that you're my partner right now.
So, let me just ask the hard-hitting question about the show.
I mean, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but yeah.
No, but it's fine. I just want to know this. Which Taima would you do?
Oh, well, that's tough. I really like them all. I like them all. I think Otori is probably my favorite. I really love the moment, although it's better than the light novel. The moment where Takaru finds his sister and she just killed 2 thugs. And he flips out because he knows that his teammates are coming around the corner. And he doesn't know what to do. He's in an extremely compromising position because he's worried about what his sister could do to his friends, and he's worried about what his friends could do to his sister because he doesn't know how they're going to react to the fact that his sister is a fucking demon hellspawn. And his first reaction is to just freak out and pull a sword on Otori. And she did, I think, of the leads of the 3 shows that were compared a lot this season, that's Asterisk, Cavalry, and Anti-Magic. I think Otori is definitely the strongest just as a character. She has the most development as a character. I think she's very strong. I think she's much more than the typical tsundere because she's actually very nice and very caring. and I like all her interactions with the other characters. I think that moment was very strong for both of those characters and informed a lot on their relationship and really sold me on Otori as a character. It's just in the light novel, it's just those two and then the sister who's passed out. Whereas in the anime, you have Mari and Usagi hovering over them in sexy Santa girl outfits. So it kind of takes away from it a little bit. But
yeah. So before we move on to this, I do want to bring up one specific example I found that's kind of stuck with me of just how poor the pacing and direction of this show was. And maybe it was like this in the light novels. I don't know, but I just found this really awkward. And it was during the Suganami arc where they're on the street running from the enemies and they get split up. And the show then follows Kusanagi and Suganami together for a while. And then after like 10 minutes, it cuts back to find out what's happening with the other characters, and they're all just sitting naked in the enemy prison. And I'm like, how did you get here?
Yeah,
it was so
this
weird.
Show's director actually needs to never work again. So yeah, that's Anti-Magic. I gave it a 7, and I sort of stand by it just because I just want people to know that the light novels are better.
Yeah, I gave it a 6, and I shit on it a lot here, but I did actually enjoy it. I'm in the same camp as you. I wanted this to be better.
You know what? Steve,
I went into it expecting nothing, and I got something.
Time, I'd recommend just checking out the light novels. I mean, the translation is a little bit shoddy right now. They wanted to do a better one, but then they kind of got fucked over by Kurokawa, right? That's the name of the company, right?
I imagine if that's happening, then maybe it'll get like an
it could, yeah. So.
At which point I might pick it up.
Yeah, because it's good. It's
I've gotten into reading light novels myself as
so
well. So
it's very good in the light novel form, but yeah, I hope this thing gets the Brotherhood treatment within a couple of years. Probably not, but fingers crossed.
One could hope.
Also, best OST of the season.
The OST in this show is better than the other ones.
Collin brought this up to me, and I agree it's really good. I still think One Punch Man is better, but I have to ask him, what is the Pirates of the Caribbean theme?
One Punch Man plays the fucking Pirates of the Caribbean theme constantly.
I have no idea. No, it doesn't, because I have no idea what song you're talking about. I love that OST. But even so, that movie has a great theme, so I don't think that's a drawback. That theme is the only good thing about those fucking movies.
What about the first one? People like that one.
No, We'll leave it at that. Frank
is going to talk about an
What's
anime?
up, guys?
Frank's been waiting a long time.
Wait, I
Sakurako-san.
thought I was going to talk about this.
Frank has to have
Does
one
he?
thing. Fun.
He does.
You can talk about it if you want to.
Oh,
Fong.
sweet. I'm back at my break, so
Go ahead, Frank.
Okay, so the story basically revolves around it's kind of a very generic detective and assistant partner. There's a boy and his name is Shotaro, and he has a very hard time describing his relationship with the detective character Sakurako. And Sakurako's deal is that she is like astoundingly beautiful, but she's obsessed with bones and corpses.
She's got a boner
she's
So you
got
two
a
have a
boner
bone to
for
pick with the
bones.
show, then?
What happened?
You two have a bone to pick with the show, then?
Yeah,
God
kind
damn
of.
it!
And
Don't laugh at that.
she goes on so stupid. She goes on expeditions with
Well, sorry, Funk. We just find it
What-
humorous.
Oh, hey!
Oh my god.
Literally kill me right now.
Whatever. She goes on expeditions with this kid to look for bones, and they always end up finding like a human fucking skeleton, and then she has like a fucking boner over it, and she
Ew.
has like
No, talk about bone mode.
Yeah, go talk about
she
bone
goes to
mode.
the bone zone.
No,
And,
not the bone zone, bone mode.
right. So
Magical bone
right,
transformation.
yeah. So like, she finds like a corpse basically, and then she's like, "All right, I have to solve the murder more or less." And she goes through this kind of magical girl-esque transformation, and like, there's some CGI skeletons walking in the background and shit. One of them looks like something straight out of fucking Hoth, and
Describe what animal in Hoth. It's
what
looks
the
like.
Tauntaun? I was
would've also accepted
thinking
Wampa.
more like the droid thing that like walks on fucking huge ass like
It's a droid
yeah,
thing. Oh,
yeah,
the
yeah, that's what I'm
AT-AT?
talking about. Anyway, so yeah,
Droid
whatever,
thing.
you know what I'm talking about. So she solves these mysteries, and no matter what, she's always an expert on everything relating to whatever the fuck mystery it is. Like, you know, this one girl is like, oh, my grandma went missing, you know? Like, they found, like, the grandma's corpse in the middle of the woods. Oh, your grandma's a painter. You know, this paint is, like, highly toxic or whatever the fuck. Like, she just knows everything that there is to know about fucking paint. Or, you know, she'll be like, oh, this dog is cursed, and this, that, the other thing. Yeah, and it's like, like, she always happens to know everything that relates to the mystery, even though she's just supposed to be, like, fuck, what the hell is a word for, like, a scientist, like, as a professor that, like, specializes in bones? Like,
A bonologist.
you know what I'm talking
A
about.
bonehead.
So she's obsessed. So
Bone Crohn's?
osteologist is the word I was looking for. And
You're sure
anyway,
it's not bone Crohn's?
it's very much murder of the week. Some of them span 2 weeks, and they all kind of relate to an overarching plot that has to do with butterflies and stupid shit, and it's framed in a way that isn't necessarily entertaining, even though, especially considering we had this full-fledged mystery with Perfect Insider, whereas this one is a little more Hyoka-esque, and I mean that in the worst way possible. That said, I still found it relatively entertaining because there's, like, some drama that happens in the midst of it that relates to Sakurako as a character. The banter between Sakurako and Shotaro is kind of interesting sometimes.
Sick dance.
I don't know. The relationship is weird. Like, sometimes it's refreshing and sometimes it's annoying. Like, there's not really much of a middle ground with it, but the interactions don't seem that bad. Sometimes they're forced, but it is what it is.
Okay, so here's all I want to say on this show. It was boring. I was not invested in the characters. The story went nowhere, and I dropped it after 6
Alright,
episodes.
that's fair.
That's exactly, as someone who's watched the whole thing, that's exactly what I have to say about it. It's almost grating how just watching these characters plod through every episode when they're all just so uninteresting. Oh my god, the episode at the festival.
That was the worst one.
I think that's the one I dropped
it took
it at.
me 3 days to get through that, of, like, watching 3 minutes at a time. It was so boring, and then
See, that episode was a 2-parter, dude.
Probably the most egregious thing is that it ends on a cliff. The series ends on a cliffhanger.
It ends on such a note that, like, nothing really happens in the last episode, and it ends on a cliffhanger. Like, she's like, I don't want to see you ever again, and then, like, he sees her again, and then that's where it ends.
She's like, let's have pie.
If you're into that sort of thing, like, you know,
If you're into that sort of thing, there's probably better shows that are examples.
but it's not terrible. Like, I don't know. I found it relatively entertaining on some weeks. Some of the murders were pretty hit miss, but I liked a couple of them, and I always felt kind of smart when I was able to figure out a few of them. Like, I think I figured out the fact that, like, the dude was, you know, planning to kill himself so he can get the life insurance policy. I was like, oh, I figured that out, and I was really happy when that happened. But it nowhere near as satisfying as, you know, figuring things out as they go along in Perfect Insider. So having that to compare it to kind of ruins my enjoyment of it.
And sadly, Perfect Insider bombed slightly worse than Sakurako-san did.
Isn't that sad? Like, I don't know.
Well, like those shows like Perfect Insider are not meant to sell.
I guess not.
Like they're made to be like artistic anime that are different.
I mean, Perfect Insider was also a drama. They made it into a live action drama before they made it into an anime. And I don't know how that sold, but I'm pretty sure that diverged a lot from the source material as well. But I figure they were probably going for that audience. I don't know.
It's oh god. I'm just every time I think about Sakurako-san, I just get angry.
And then followed by Sleepy.
What studio was it?
I don't know.
Okay.
I actually
Can we talk about how the show's literally just the Fox drama Bones?
Yeah, it's very much just an anime version of Bones.
It's ridiculous.
The biggest travesty, it wasn't made by Studio
It's made by
Bones.
Troika.
Studio
did-
Bones was too busy making
who
something
did
good.
only one other anime series, Al Noah Zero, which is also shit.
Oh my god. Let's not go there. Anyone have anything else to add to Sakurako-san?
I think we pretty much covered
It's
everything. here.
shit.
Go on to show me sample then.
Thanks, Kenny.
I didn't say anything.
Funk stole your catchphrase, which is appropriate because he's up
Oh.
next. Funk. Kagawani.
Okay, so I think if you ever wanted an example of how to make an anime with about $5, Kagewani would be a great example of that.
That sounds like Koaban.
Yeah,
Oh my god.
I liked Koaban too while we're at that, but to get back on
Did you?
Kagewani, I did. But we're not talking about that right now.
We should
can
have a
talk about that.
discussion about that later.
You can talk about them both right now. 'Cause
Okay,
it's
well
on the
first
list.
let's get through Kagewani. So Kagewani, for anybody who hasn't watched it, which is everybody except Shellblade,
So,
the basic premise is there's a professor who's interested in cryptids, so he goes around investigating them, just going and looking into rumors, and has numerous encounters with random mythical creatures that eventually vaguely tie up into an arc about these shadow crocodiles called Kagewani, which are a threat to everyone. This threat is not resolved, and then the show ends. But each episode is only about 7 minutes, and they all deal with a different beast that he encounters. And they're all, vaguely entertaining. Like, there's... So the reason I said the show was made on such a tight budget is that the animation is very distinct and mostly bad.
distinct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it like cardboard
It's
cutouts?
literally cardboard cutouts and then like actual live action images.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
With a shit
Pasted
ton of
over-
filters thrown on
Yeah.
them.
Pasted over the characters. Like there were times, a lot of times, where you could just see that the character's arms are like pictures of an actual person's arms. And it's just really awkward. Or like there's one where some guy goes down to pet a dog and they just took a picture of a growling Shiba Inu.
I might have to watch this show.
But the thing is, when you look past that,
Yes, okay, yes. It's okay.
it's not bad.
Yeah, there's the best episode is definitely the deep sea one. With
Yeah.
the spooky whale monster. I'm not sure if Funk would concur.
I did like that one. The one I liked the best was the one on the school ground with the sandworm. Tremors.
Oh, that one reminded me of The Floor is Lava.
Yes. Be the source of all terror.
What else could we possibly
Is that
say
it?
about this show? Can we? I'm not even sure if I liked it or didn't like it. If I give it a recommendation.
The thing is,
Just worth watching.
the opportunity cost of watching it was so low because
Yeah,
the
it's like-
episodes were so short.
it's only a little over an hour if you want to watch it all.
Jesus Christ, Kagewani.
Go
I
on.
will know about. I will say that the whole
Okay.
idea of the villain character, that mad entrepreneur trying to make his own Kagewanis, didn't particularly pay off for me. I would have just enjoyed it more if it was just Bamba Sensei running around having a good
Yeah,
time.
he should have. Yeah, it should have been just focusing on him more. I don't care about this fucking conspiracy shit about Lay Rich Man trying to get Lay richer.
Yeah. It was unnecessary, which is strange. Oh, one thing I did love about the show is how every episode ended with that very shitty music, but just the way it cuts to the chorus always made me giggle a bit because it was so cheesy. And then it's like that shitty guitar line. Do you know what I'm talking about, Collin?
I do know what you're talking about, Michael.
I don't know. It worked for me, despite the song itself. being
The
almost
creature
subjective.
designs were neat.
They were, despite the limitations inherent with the art
Yes.
style.
They certainly. You know what? I was gonna say they tried their best, but I'm not really sure. I think this may have been made by like 6 guys in like their break time for other things. So
Yeah.
I'm not even sure how they afforded voice actors.
They probably just hired
They probably
friends.
just did it themselves.
Oh, speaking of voice actors, bringing it back, I felt like Anti-Magic had some of the best voice acting of the season. Just throwing it out there. Another thing that the show did right that was marred by a terrible adaptation. Now let's move on.
All right, Kolbon?
Yeah, we can talk
Kagewani.
Koban. You want to summarize it, Funk?
No, we no.
Okay,
Wait,
we're
is
not done with...
Koban this season?
Yes.
Yeah, Koban.
Oh, never mind then. Never mind. Go talk about Koban.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, I only was able to watch about 3 or 4 episodes before
Oh my
Steve
God.
just kept forgetting to upload them.
I actually didn't. I stopped finding subs for them, so I couldn't
Really?
upload it. Yeah, I didn't. I don't know where those subs went. So maybe they're in Mongolia, but I couldn't.
That's
find them.
interesting. I wasn't too invested that when I noticed that you stopped uploading them, I didn't really care to prod you about it. So, yeah, but it's a rotoscoped horror show.
Yeah, not too dissimilar from Aku no Hana.
Yes, but it.
Which is fucking garbage.
But again, very short episodes, very episodic episodes. But Frank, did you finish it?
I did finish it,
So
and
Frank found the subs.
yeah, I found them. They weren't that hard to find.
Well, maybe you could be friends with Frank.
No, but it was fucking bizarre. Like, here's my gripe. Like, they're 3-minute long blocks of episodes, right? It's 13 3-minute blocks, and it's obvious that they have no idea how to manage that time whatsoever. They all kind of follow the same, more or less, cookie cutter premise. They all revolve around different characters, which you have obviously no time to get invested in because, they're 3-minute chunks. But all the same, it's like they try to do this world building thing where they want you to get invested in them, but you obviously can't because you don't have, the time or the management. But here's the thing. It's trying really hard to be this horror story made for the digital age. And there are other horror shows that do that a lot better. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's not really original. And it's the only thing that it really has going for it is the fact that it's rotoscoped, which is nice at times, but it comes off as just really eerie like Aku no Hana did, which worked in the favor of that. It did because every time you...
Listen, I don't want to get on a fucking tangent about Aku no Hana.
I'm just saying, Aku no Hana, if you watch Aku no Hana, it fucking makes you uncomfortable, which is the point.
No, it's
it is
not
the point. Like,
it's not the point of the
it
animation.
is. Yes, it is.
No, okay, shut up. I can't
oh my
do
god,
this now.
it definitely is though. It's if you like Aku no Hana, watch Koban, I guess.
Aku no Hana is literally the worst
The
anime
few
ever
episodes I saw, Kolbon was effective in the whole horror thing. Like, I wasn't scared. I was mildly unsettled.
Yeah, right. That's the point.
More than I can say about a lot of shows. So, good job. GG WP.
No re.
No. Yeah. But how much can you say about all these short time block shows? They're not Tonari no Seki-kun.
Apparently
No,
nothing
what?
is.
No. I mean, we can segue into it. I'd love to talk about it again, but
Another time. Is that all you
Yeah,
guys
for
want to talk
Koban,
about?
yeah, I think that's it.
Yes,
Collin,
sir.
Lupin the Third.
Wait, I thought you said this is the last one.
Yes, it is, but it's
Oh,
not.
what do you mean?
there's more.
Like we've been going long, so I'm skipping Valkyrie Drive, and we can talk about Digimon on the other podcast.
Okay, but then rather than talk about Lupin the Third, I'm gonna have a very important discussion with Kenny.
No,
we're gonna talk about Showman Sample.
Oh my god, I forgot that.
Oh my god.
I'm sorry. Yes, please talk about Showman Sample.
Showman Sample is a show.
Example.
Is definitely a show, and it's about a young man who is kidnapped and taken to a school for the autistic, for the cripplingly autistic, and
he has to teach them what it's like to be a normal person.
Is this
and
real?
Kenny, yes,
Sadly.
and Kenny is a fan of this show, right, Kenny?
Yes.
Kenny loves this show to the bottom of his heart, and
I wouldn't say that, but I liked it.
And I was given the task to talk about Showman Sample here, and I feel like I have watched enough of it to have an informed opinion of it, because I have watched all 12 episodes of Showman Sample and read the manga adaptation of it.
Dun, 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 dun.
I hate you. I literally hate you right now.
Someone's showman sampling me up.
What?
So,
Man.
and I will say that Showman Sample is okay.
Oh
Are
my
you fucking
God.
kidding me?
Showman Sample is garbage. It is absolute fucking trash.
Showman Sample
Oh my
is
god.
mildly funny.
I
No,
fucking told
it is
you.
anti-funny.
And-
This is the anti-funny academy.
Of everyone that fucking doubted me, the last person I thought would be Collin.
Funk, you're still on my
Well,
team, right?
I am, of course. I hated it, but I only watched one episode, so
That's all you need to watch.
it's
Hey,
possible it
It's
got
Collin,
better.
fucking-
Collin
Yes. Yes.
gets.
That's not the funniest part of the show.
I know, but
Shut up.
still,
Stop trying to bond with me, Kenny.
sorry.
We're two different people, but we just happen to not hate Showman Sample.
Together.
I found the main character to be at his funniest when he's just messing with the autism of the girls.
I can't believe this is genuinely the premise.
No, they're not actually autistic.
No, they're
Oh, okay.
the girls.
No, they
the
are.
girl-
It
the
doesn't matter if they say they are.
Is it
The
like
girls-
Haganai where like they're
No,
like
the
fake
girls-
autistic?
The girls in Showman Sample are fucking like ignorant as shit.
I'm sorry, autistic is not harsh enough. They're fucking retarded.
Yeah, they're. I guess I already know.
The school leaders seem to have concluded
look.
he's a homosexual with a muscle fetish.
Yes, that is.
Which was not funny.
It plays. They don't really call back to it as much as you'd think. Although one of the funniest running gags is the Japanese pronunciation of "You got me mad now," which
What?
recurs several times, and its origin is him watching a video of two muscular guys wrestling each other, and one of them saying "You got me mad now." And it becomes his own. It becomes a meme within the show.
Okay.
So this is difficult for me to talk about.
Okay,
Just-
can we
just
just talk about
because I
how?
did-
Can we just talk about how the English title for the show, if you translate the whole thing, is
Please do not.
the
read.
story in which I was kidnapped by a young lady's school to be a sample of the common people.
That is exactly the premise. There you go. They
Fucking
say the premise right in the title.
disgusting.
I'm just glad I have someone on my side.
Is
my
Kenny
God.
like this?
Kenny was
You just
loved
The-
this
Kenny.
since
Kenny,
day
just
one.
wait.
The
Kenny, what?
climax of the show
Kenny, just wait 10,
integrates
15
a
minutes.
small amount of drama, but it's mostly tongue in cheek. The brother of one of they try to. It's basically the ending of Shrek 2, where they try to stop a
She's-
wedding from happening.
Well, she's betrothed. So
Yes. They try to stop a wedding from going through.
I love how Shrek 2 was the example
Yeah.
we went to.
yeah, it's bad, but just
And that they have like a part where the brother of the character getting married, he gets into this really melodramatic fight with what we can only assume is the family's bodyguard. But part of the joke is that you have no idea who that guy is. And these two have a history together, and
it never shows. Like
no, yeah, exactly. That's part of the joke.
Yeah,
Like you have no idea who these people are, yet they have like a really dramatic fight with one another. Karen was clearly the favorite among the animators because they gave her extra scenes in the finale that were not present in at least. I'm not sure if it was in.
Let me clarify. Fan service extra scenes.
Sure, why not? Probably the funniest episode was the one where the maids are organizing a date with him and the lolly, and every time he tries to pull away, the maids do something that forces him to eat at the same table as her, eat from the same plate as her, and feed her. And the voice acting delivery from all the maids is actually excellent and really funny. But in the end, I probably would have sacrificed this show any day of the week if it meant that Anti-Magic could get a better adaptation. But I'm sure that would have been a monkey's paw and something would have gone wrong anyway. So
Monkey's paw.
So Showman's Sample, as briefly as I could talk about it, wasn't terrible. And you can see why Kenny likes it, because 4 out of the 6 girls in the harem are tsundere.
I just like you to know, Collin,
well?
You've wasted this gimmick on a bad show. Next time you ask specifically to talk about a show on the podcast, I'm going to know something's up.
So, by the way, Lupin is very good. I love the character designs. I really like every episode that I've seen of it. I've only seen 12, but it's completely slipped through the cracks this season because there's no one subbing it. And it's coming out very late in comparison to other subs. But
that's unfortunate.
Also, the guy who voices Jigen is old as shit and needs to be replaced.
I thought you say he needs to die.
The guy needs to retire from the role, though, because he sounds rather weary. Otherwise, all the voice acting is very good. And I'd recommend it to everyone here. Please watch Lupin. It's a lot of fun. And that's really all I had to say about it.
Okay,
All right.
great. So we're down to the very last thing, Kenny. I'm glad you're still with us. If anyone is actually still listening out there, thank you also for being.
Well,
here
would it
for 4
really be an
hours.
issue if you maybe split the podcast into 2 parts, or I don't know.
No, that's lame.
Or 8 parts.
Listen, man, they're gonna see 4 hours, and you think, yeah, I'm gonna listen to all that, no problem.
Yeah, they will. This is
Omega, we're sorry.
No, they're not gonna listen to this shit.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about Love Live, the school
No,
idol
we're
movie.
not gonna talk about.
And I just
No.
want to say,
I've been waiting for
I
this
just want to
the
say,
whole
Kenny,
time.
No.
I've been waiting.
just going into this movie, I was expecting it to be like a fun-filled adventure of friendship and camaraderie, and of course music, and it was all that for sure.
You watched it?
But who expected time
Kenny.
travel?
Okay.
Kenny, we all watched it, but I just want to say, I was pleasantly surprised when the movie had an abrupt and sudden change into a hard science fiction time travel epic, where one of the characters meets herself from the future, and she's traveled back in time to encourage her past self to give up singing in order to prevent 9/11. That's the plot of the movie.
So, Kenny, is all of the music in Love Live that bad? Or
No,
is
it's
it
not.
just
It's
the movie?
No,
Okay.
the music in Love Live is good. It's enjoyable. Just
Not based on that movie,
The
Kenny. I'm
music
sorry.
tracks were weak. I will admit that.
Okay, so I think if we're going to discuss this movie, it's probably best to do it in chronological order. So let's talk about how the movie starts off, and it starts off with the Love Lives all running off to New
which
York,
is just
because apparently some TV station in New York wants to do a story about Japanese school idols for
and
some
it's
reason.
this entire sequence of the movie is just an excuse for the animators and the staff to just go to New York for a vacation.
Yes. and the whole time on this plane trip, I'm thinking 2 things. 1, who's paying for this? 2, why do
Tori's
these
mom is
high
paying
school
for it,
girls
first of all.
going to a foreign country not have a chaperone?
Maki's paying for it.
Oh, Maki's paying for it?
Why? Is she a rich
Yes, her family's fucking rich.
Like-
They're a
Yo,
bunch of
yo,
I'm
doctors.
sorry.
Kenny, does any guy have any line in all of Love Live?
No.
No! You,
Okay.
This is why I don't want to talk
that's
about
why he
this,
likes
because
it.
you're all a bunch of fucking ignorant bitches that just don't know
Hey, we watched the movie.
So what I was wondering
We're
through
just-
the
we're-
the first 30 minutes. So are they the Love Lives, or is the Love Live an actual thing?
No, the Love Live is a competition, dude.
Yes.
I'm glad
Frank,
Frank knows
shut
all
up.
the
You
answers.
don't
Yeah,
know fucking
dude.
Shit.
also,
So-
where
If
does
you
this
watched the recap
at-
before the fucking movie, you would know this shit.
No, shut up. Okay, so then
Are you
then
wait,
they get
wait,
to New
Steve,
York
shut up.
and
Are you talking to me,
no.
Frank?
No,
He's talking to me.
I'm talking to Mule.
Okay, so they go
Oh,
to New
God,
York
I'm about to
and they have
fucking lose my
these
shit.
wacky sightseeing adventures, and then at some point, Hanoka gets lost on the subway because, of course, a Japanese person would get lost.
Not
on the subway.
before it starts raining,
Um,
and then for no reason, Rin bursts into song with Anayo.
We'll talk about
No,
let
that
me
happened
get there.
before the subway.
It doesn't matter. I want to talk about
Okay.
this. So she's wandering the streets of New York alone, and apparently, like according to this version of New York City, everyone there is the nicest person ever.
True.
So she finds this like a mysterious unnamed woman singing on the street,
Which was censored in the theatrical release for me. I just heard her singing
Why?
oohs and ahs and shit.
Really?
Oh. So she walks up to her, and at this point in the movie, I offhandedly make the remark something to the fact that I bet you that's the future version of this character, and she's come back
You mean
in time.
honkers?
Yes,
Yes,
honkers.
Honkers, yes. And turns out I hit the nail on the head.
Somehow.
But it doesn't
There's
make any
a
sense,
sign.
though.
There's a fucking sign in like one of the streets that says "No honk."
But the thing is, when
Thank you for
that
bringing that
character's
up.
singing, there's a crowd around her, and B, honkers helps carry future honkers stuff. So future honkers was clearly there, meaning this wasn't symbolic or a hallucination or anything. That there was actually future honkers came back from the future. Like there's no
Yes.
room for interpretation here. That is exactly what happened.
Right.
And then it's drilled in home further into the movie where she meets her again in Japan, and she's like, I have that microphone at home too. So it's very clearly meant to be her from
That-
the future. I don't know how you explain it any other way. Kenny, does the series have time
No, but-
travel? Because if it does, I'll watch
In the
it.
No,
OVA,
no.
Maki
Shut
does
up,
magic.
Frank.
Oh, bully Frank.
It does not have any time travel fucking bullshit.
So let's talk about the shitty musical numbers.
One of
Hold
them
on
was
a
good.
second. One of them had a good introduction,
Yes.
and then they
it was
blew
the
it.
paparazzi one.
Was that the paparazzi one? I can't
That
remember.
one's my
Yeah.
favorite. That one's my
Okay, yeah.
favorite.
It had a good lead in, but then they blew it. All of us picked a Love Live to be our favorite.
Yes.
Did we?
Yes. Well, you weren't there because you didn't watch it with us.
Well, yeah, but I claim Nico.
yeah, but then Mule cucked you.
Yeah.
Oh, what a fucking
And then
dick!
fuck-
Yeah,
What
I
a
picked
fucking asshole.
Maki.
So I just want to note that I bet on the wrong horse because I picked.
They're all the wrong horse.
I picked Rin, and
Rin is good.
she-
Rin's a good choice.
No, every time she spoke, she said she's some sort of cat person,
Yes.
and
yes.
That was extremely grating.
That's what she does.
it made me want to not breed ever because my child might end up a cat person.
I gotta say, cucking Frank out of Nico like really worked for me since like
No one cares about you, Mule.
there's the
Nico's
payoff of
going
her
back
getting
to
raped in her
Frank.
dreams by alpacas.
All right, listen. Mule,
Oh yeah, that happened.
Mule, in the movie theater at the very beginning when she said Nico Nico Ni into the camera, everyone in the movie theater did it too, and I had never been more ashamed to be in a place in my entire life.
And you went to that Frozen.
But
cinema.
nobody sang, so it was fine.
I mean, you tried to.
No, but you did.
We wanted to. The intention was to, and then it didn't happen.
So let's talk about how this movie has like the most paper thin conflict of all time. Of you have the love lives debating whether they want to continue being idols.
Well, I mean, the thing is,
As if there's some kind of downside to continue.
well, I mean, the thing is, the three of them are going to be graduating, so they can't do it after they graduate.
But they can
Like,
just
they
still
can-
be regular
but
idols.
they can't. They talk about how they can't be school
Right.
idols, but like they're also kind of like, why can't we be?
Well, because
real
the whole
idols?
motivation was that they were doing it for their school. They don't have
But-
that aspect
Yeah.
anymore.
Why
to
would they
continue.
stop?
And they put all of it. If you watch the fucking series, you would know that.
If you watch the fucking series, which you have not watched.
Anyway, I watched the
Shit.
recap. I watched the recap. Anyway,
Yeah, no, the recap doesn't count, you fucking moron. Oh my god.
you would know that before the Love Live, they all swore that their Love Live would be Muse's final performance, and then all of a sudden they
That's
feel like they're
bullshit.
betraying everything that they stand for.
They stand.
But
For
they stand for
nothing.
their school.
So would they fall for anything?
So is this like an honor system kind of thing going on here?
Well, I mean,
Or-
here's the thing: like, they can't be school idols if they fucking graduate. But like, if they get like a record deal, like Arise did, like then they're
No. Arise
Okay.
gave them an opportunity to like forward on to like be idols. Like
yeah, to be like real idols, like with a record deal and shit.
yeah, but you didn't watch the fucking series.
I
like,
watched the
keep telling
movie.
You.
I watched the fucking movie. I heard it.
I don't fucking care.
This is the most vocal Kenny's ever been in a podcast in like years.
I'm so happy. Oh, by the way, can we talk about how fucking Nico got fucked up Maki with Tsubaki?
What was that,
Can we talk
Frank?
about how Nico got fucking cucked out of Maki because like she saw Maki in the window with Tsubaki and she was like freaking out?
Maki and
Yeah,
Tsubaki.
everyone in the theater was fucking flipping shit over that. Like they were all like,
Hey, Funk. Or
Yeah.
not Funk. Frank.
yes,
Subasa.
whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
The bitch from Arise.
Yeah. You don't know shit.
Maki's song sucked, by the way, just so you know. Like, your waifu wrote a song for the group, and it was shit.
Also, okay, the Love Lives seem to have the uncanny ability to turn 3D at will, and it is extremely jarring.
Yeah, during the musical numbers.
I'm 2 seconds away of buying a plane ticket to fly over there and fucking beat the ever-loving fucking shit out of you.
Out of me?
I
Just-
understand.
Which one of
Wait,
us?
just me? We just bonded over Showman Sample! If you speak again, Kenny, I'm gonna blow the train whistle.
One thing I wanted
I meant
to...
Frank.
One thing I wanted to talk about was the as for the actual music for the Love Lives. So when all 9 of them get together to sing, they make no effort to take advantage of having 9 distinct vocal parts, and it just sounds like each of the 3 of them are singing the same vocal line.
Some of them do. Some of the songs actually do that. None of the songs in the movie do, but like if you actually listen to the songs, some of them do that.
I love how Frank keeps talking like he's this Love Live expert.
Because when I was watching the movie, the songs that only had a couple of them versus the songs that had all of them sounded exactly the same.
Right.
It was a missed opportunity by all accounts.
Well, the way they organized it was the first song had all the first years, and then the one with the paparazzi had all the third years, and then Future Style, which is undoubtedly the worst song in the movie, had all the second years. So, like, that's the way they...
When Love Live splits up into 3 distinct
Yeah.
timelines,
Well, I mean,
do they do it by
there's...
year?
It's not Love Live, it's Muse.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this, but within Muse, there are 3
They have
distinct
like 3
sub-units.
distinct groups.
Right.
Right.
And are they separated by years?
No,
Yes.
they're not, actually.
Well, no, they're not. Like, they have what is?
There's Prontom, there's Lily White, and there's
Then they have
BB,
BB,
which is the best one.
which is my favorite.
Yeah, it's the only
Oh my
good one.
God.
See,
Is
me and
Nico
Kenny
Nico
agree.
Ni in BB?
Yeah, Nico Nico Ni, Maki, and Elichi, which is the Slav.
Oh, Eli.
What?
Eli.
What'd you say?
She's a Slav.
Yeah, she's like a quarter Russian.
Yeah.
Hence Slav.
So Kenny reminded me of something in that the subtitles on this movie were
Oh my
had
God.
extreme difficulty making the Muse symbol.
Fucking bracket, comma, apostrophe S.
Oh, that sucks.
The thing is that every time they said it, it was a different way of representing the music.
And not only that, like there was times in the movies where they got it right, so they clearly could do it. So I don't know whether the subber was just trolling here or what was going on with this fucking subtitling.
That's bad funny.
But it was fucking
Sometimes there are
hilarious.
fucking numbers, other times there are brackets or commas.
Like the closest approximation they could get was comma U. That's basically the best they could do, other than the one time they got it right somehow.
That's mid.
And immediately after, it was just like a mess of symbols.
But it's in one conversation you'd see it written like 3 different ways. It was great.
What annoyed me the most was that like the fucking New Yorkers didn't talk like New Yorkers, and they all sounded like generic Americans speaking English.
They actually did get an English speaker to
Genericans?
voice them.
Yeah, right, but like, you know. Oh, by the way, I went to the Japanese restaurant that they went to when the one bitch was complaining that she wanted to eat rice. Like, I go to that Japanese
Mario.
restaurant all the time.
Mario.
We just call her Mario
Hana.
because like
You
that's the
literally,
position.
you literally didn't call her Nayo.
No, yeah, we called her Mario.
Any character who didn't have red or blue hair, I couldn't tell.
I was able to tell them all apart by the
Why
end.
is she Mario?
We'll just look at her appearance. It's
Because she
like,
only. Also,
Wait.
her favorite food
Kenny-
is
I
white
fucking
rice, and her
hate you
favorite
so
food is
much.
none.
she's clearly meant to be
Kenny,
the
why
one
is
with like
Why is Hinoka the leader of the bunch? She doesn't strike
All
me
right,
I
as a
think
in
it's
one
because
of
we
the
know
episodes-
her well.
She develops the group
Yeah, well, she recruits them
in
all.
the series.
In one of the episodes, they actually have a debate on who's the leader, and then they have a song.
Frank, shut up.
I'm just saying. I watched the recap. I know.
No, I'm just saying. I find it interesting from the design perspective of the people who are making this series that they would make this character the main character because she doesn't look like.
She
kind of
gets shit done though.
Does she have help from her?
No,
future self?
that's
No,
only
she
in the
doesn't.
movie.
But she like.
Go on.
Proceed.
Thank you.
Advance.
No, she's the main character from like the show that like saves the school.
Huh.
So, I mean, she ends up like. Okay, I'm.
Kenny.
What?
Kenny, I just want to say that after this weekend, we all understand you a little bit more.
All right, can I just say that the movie made Umi out to be a massive fucking cunt? Like,
Yeah.
It did.
Oh God, we definitely understand
like
that
it was
much.
so annoying. Like, she's not that much of a cunt normally. I'm pretty sure. But like, you know, the whole time.
Maybe you should watch the series and stop talking about it like you
Look, I'm
watched
just
it.
saying, like, she's like the whole time she's just bitching at Hanukkah, like, you sent us to the wrong hotel. You went on the wrong subway. And like,
Okay, so the real question is, what would everyone rate this?
I give it a
movie?
4 out of
10.
10.
I gave it a
And
7.
a
I know.
10, and I'm about to fucking kill someone.
Who is it?
I won't mention who.
I mean,
no.
Kenny. But before you fly anywhere and kill anyone, I just want you to know that this was my idea. We love you, Kenny.
Steve will be
But
the first to
Operation
die.
Kenny was a complete success. Okay, we're ending it there.
I like
Exfiltrate the hot zone.
Thank you guys for having me.
You're welcome.
I fucking hate.
Don't make this awkward. Someone say
Okay.
something.
Oh, as a goodbye or like
Something.
or oh
Yeah.